In the laboratory stood a man with dark hair. He was conducting an experiment and knew every action has its own algorithm. When water molecules begin to move quickly, they release heat, and the water becomes hotter. This is how it reaches boiling. The boy carefully watched all this and observed with interest how the water began to boil. He used the magic of the mind. Soon the drink in the flasks was ready. It was black coffee. The boy with dark hair called someone to him. 3 girls immediately approached him. They were all beautiful, but each had her own special beauty. The girls happily hugged the boy and looked at him with admiration. His name was Sho. The boy entered a completely different world. Here his days were filled with various events. Sho searched the network for information about the ancient world, and thanks to the magic of the mind, often created special cheats. He gained life in the new world through a series of strange events that began 2 years ago. He was a clever streamer who demonstrated interesting inventions made from materials familiar to everyone, used in production. On his 20th birthday, Sho launched his own channel, and already after 3 months the number of his subscribers reached. The boy was upset because only 5 people had gathered. But Sho did not lose hope and believed in his channel. He thought that if he added new videos every day, one day someone would see them, and the number of viewers would sharply increase. The boy was upset when he saw that there were few subscribers on his channel. That same day, he decided to shoot a new video, hoping that it would help. But in a moment the boy found himself in the middle of a forest, and next to him lay his backpack. Recovering in an unfamiliar place, he immediately took out everything that was in the backpack. In his backpack he had a towel, a lighter, a plate, a chocolate bar, a small container, and a multi-tool. The boy was glad that he took all this with him. Sho took out his phone to check the connection, but there was no signal and the battery was almost dead. He remembered that he forgot to charge his smartphone. Suddenly Sho came to his senses. He looked around, and surprise along with fear appeared in his eyes. The boy had no idea where he was now. When Sho finally composed himself, he decided to find a way out of the forest. Since childhood, the boy had gone hiking and was well-oriented in nature. However, now everything around looked unfamiliar. He looked at the plants but could not recognize any of them, as if he had entered a completely different world. Anxious thoughts began to appear in his head. It seemed that he had accidentally ended up in an ancient wild forest that had grown on its own without human help. Sho also began to wonder if he had found himself in some otherworldly realm or a completely different reality. Suddenly, a downpour began in the forest. The boy quickly realized he needed to find shelter from the rain. It was then that it dawned on him he was in a completely different world. Sho hid from the rain inside an empty tree and plunged into thoughts about another world. However, around him, he noticed no traces of magic or anything wondrous. Many years had passed since his last visit to this forest. Now, sitting by the night fire, he sadly recalled that he had never managed to make new acquaintances with girls. He did not want such a lonely life. The next day, the boy walked through the forest for a long time, looking for someone. He walked forward, leaning on a wooden stick. Suddenly, Sho stopped. Right in front of him stretched a small field, all covered with white flowers. The boy noticed that this flower stood out because of its size. It was significantly larger than bananas, but bananas has only 3 petals, so their flowers are not as big as this one. Sho noticed that the edges of the petals seemed somewhat transparent, which made the flower resemble a sunflower. Unexpectedly, the flowers trembled and began to slowly wither, and from the petals themselves appeared black shiny beads. This greatly surprised Sho. He took out his phone from his pocket and began filming how everything strangely changed, filling with unusual colors. Sho's phone suddenly turned off because the battery died, so he simply put it aside. After that, the boy approached the flowers, looked carefully, and saw a bead there. He took it in his hands, thoughtfully examined it, and wondered if this bead could be eaten. The man did not stop and kept walking until he reached the waterfall. There, Sho wearily sat on a stone. He wondered if he could meet someone from the people here. Suddenly, he was pierced by a sharp pain. It turned out that he was bitten by a large insect that resembled a tick or a spider. Frightened, Sho hurried to shake it off his hand, but it held on tightly. In a moment, the boy fainted. After some time, the young man, who had not yet regained consciousness, decided that his end had come. Before his eyes appeared a blurry silhouette of an angel, but when his vision cleared, he saw a beautiful girl. She noticed that the boy had finally woken up. Sho could not take his eyes off her beauty. It seemed to him as if he had entered paradise, and the girl looked at him, not understanding what he was saying. She tightly gripped her magical staff in her hands and anxiously asked who he was and whether Camillo had sent him here. Sho had no idea who this Camillo was and did not even intend to agree with the girl. The boy believed he was not guilty of anything suspicious. To dispel suspicion, the boy decided to introduce himself to the girl. She heard such an unusual name for the first time. After that, Sho sincerely thanked her for saving him. The girl gave her name Rubia. The boy learned that he had been paralyzed by a spider bite, which caused him to faint. Rubia used magic to cure him of the poison. She offered him to stay at her home until he felt better. Sho realized that the girl possessed magic, confirming his suspicion. He had indeed come to another world. Suddenly, the girl turned away, noticing something interesting. Rubia noticed strange things on the boy and was very eager to find out what they were. She held a container in her hands, and the boy noticed it. He explained that he had found this item in the forest. The boy opened the container and said that on the way he had seen beautiful white flowers. They had already wilted and dried, and instead, red berries had grown. Rubia happily looked inside the container, as there were small birch berries inside. Sho did not know the name of these berries and did not understand why they were so important. He calmly accepted this fact. To the girl's surprise, the boy wanted to give the berries to her because Rubia had saved his life. The girl was confused and almost frightened, as these berries were very valuable. The boy could not understand why the girl was so upset. To him, these flowers meant nothing special, as many grew around. They were very close to the place where he had fainted. Sho suggested going together to look at these flowers. The girl blushed and, a little confused, silently looked at him. Rubia was a little shy, but still agreed to the boy's proposal. Shu looked at her in surprise, not understanding why she was so confused. Since then, Ruby Shaw began living with a girl in a small house. The young man quickly realized he had entered a completely different world. Everything here was very similar to the Middle Ages, like in his hometown. But in this world there was no gas, tap water, electricity, or any technical conveniences. Even reaching the well to fetch water was difficult for him. No status screens appeared before his eyes. Unlike usual, a huge spider attacked him. This had never happened to him before, as monsters usually avoided him. This was nothing like the transformation stories he had known before. The boy pondered his new life when suddenly a girl approached him. She used magic and lit a bonfire. Rubia invited the boy to the table. He, tired, watched everything that was happening. And Sho did not hide his delight at the magic he saw. So he spoke quietly and uncertainly, feeling a bit embarrassed. The dark-haired boy realized he had to ask Ruby about it after she helped him, but he decided to first ask her to teach him magic. After his words, Shu bowed to the girl. Some time passed. The girl said she could not teach him magic until he became her apprentice. Only when he officially became her ward, as a true mistress, would she have the right to pass on her knowledge to him. Being a true master is a profession just like being a scientist or an engineer. Ruby had a special pendant on a chain. It was her master certificate. There are many eccentrics in the world who learn magic on their own. For Rubia, a true scientist is one who seeks the causes of everything and strives to know the truth. Magic for her was a symbol of this path, and by ignoring this, people confuse the sequence and turn everything upside down. Sho understood what the girl was talking about. He thought that magic was quite a useful thing. He coughed to get everyone's attention and was about to say something. He believed it was wrong to constantly remain indebted to the girl, so he wanted to find at least some kind of job. Then Ruby suggested to Shaw to become a real scientist or engage in something similar. But the boy did not agree with her opinion. Shu knelt before the girl and sincerely asked Rubius to take him as an apprentice. The girl felt uncomfortable because not everyone can become a true master. First of all, it was necessary to find out if the boy had the required abilities. The show was determined. He was ready to do anything to master magic. The girl asked the boy if he believed in God. The boy just silently looked at her, but still answered. Sho calmly and firmly said that he did not believe in God. But he had never met God and trusted only what he could see with his own eyes. Even if a prominent person spoke about it, for him, it remained only a half-truth until he was convinced himself. Once the girl asked him about the miracles that God performs. Sho had also never seen a real miracle. He believed that if a miracle does happen, there must be some reason and its own course of events behind it. He spoke about this confidently. If a person can find the real reason and strives for the truth, they can even in their own way control God's miracles. Ruby looked at the boy with surprise because his answer was perfect for someone who truly dreams of becoming a real scientist. The girl tried to find out who he really was, but just smiled and told the boy that it was just a trial oral test and the real challenge was still ahead of him. After some time, the boy and the girl went outside. Ruby approached the stove, leaned her staff against it, and offered the boy to light the fire. Sho was surprised by such an unexpected request, but thought that if he knew the theory well, magic would definitely help him. The girl stood silently, pondering what she had heard, and understood that the boy was having a very hard time right now. Sho thought deeply. He recalled the theory of magic. To burn something, heat is needed. Now the boy was trying to figure out how exactly to create it. When air is compressed, it heats up significantly. This principle was previously used in car engines. Sho realized, if you compress air well, you can get a lot of heat. As soon as the boy imagined this, a warm energy ball immediately appeared in his palms. Ruby could not believe her eyes. He created it so quickly that she was amazed. Sho placed the warm ball with his palm directly into the fireplace with firewood. At first, nothing happened, but suddenly, after a few seconds, the warm ball flared up and ignited the firewood. The trick worked perfectly for the performance. But something unexpected happened. The heat ball turned out to be too powerful, and because of this, the fireplace suddenly caught fire and then exploded. Ruby fell to the floor from surprise, and ash from the fireplace rained down on her. The astonished sorceress barely managed to ask the boy why he used magic. Sho somewhat awkwardly admitted that he needed a heat source to light the fire in the fireplace. Therefore, he decided to use the idea of compressing air. The girl was amazed by his words, for he was an ordinary man who did not even have a teacher. She could not understand how he managed to achieve such a thing. Rubia agreed to the boy's words as his proposal seemed reasonable. However, in practice, it worked only in theory. It was wrong here to simply follow the suggested method. The boy should have wondered why fire is able to burn at all. The boy pondered. In this case, the flame appeared because there is carbon in the wood and oxygen in the air. When they combined, the element gorongi emerged. Sho thought he had never considered it from the perspective of the image of fire, but Rubia said that such an idea was not necessary. He just needed to imagine the very essence of gorongi. At that moment, the boy's mind was filled only with thoughts of carbon and oxygen compounds. Magic quickly concentrated in his hands, and in an instant, the firewood burst into bright flames. Suddenly, the flame flared up again, and a large stream of fire burst out of the chimney. But this time there was no explosion, and the fire continued to live. Sho watched with pleasure as the fire burned in the fireplace. Rubia could not believe how strong and talented this boy turned out to be. He understood the essence of magic after just one piece of advice. Smiling, the boy reminded her not to forget to take him as an apprentice. The girl still could not recover from everything that had just happened. This is how Sho became a student of Ruby, a true master. The boy understood only physical phenomena and did not know how to use magic at all. He believed that magic was accessible to everyone, but in this world, people did not even know the basics of science. He was delighted when he realized that magic was too easy for him. It became a great idea for his next video, and thanks to this topic, he could gather over 10 million subscribers, a number that no longer seemed an unattainable dream. Since Shaw became Rubia's apprentice, his life has been filled with colors. Now, besides the usual household chores, cleaning, chopping wood, and fetching water, he also gathers various plants and insects with Rubia to study them carefully. They walked along the forest path. Rubia watched a bright butterfly enchantedly, and Sho, using a free moment, practiced his magical skills and worked on his strikes. Suddenly, Rubia called him and asked if he knew anything about the theory of air compression. He understood that when air expands, it becomes colder, unlike when it is compressed and heated. If particles are made to move faster, they heat up, and if they hardly move, everything around becomes cold. The show could have told much more, but suddenly fell silent. The girl was surprised that he knew all this. Rubia also noticed his good manners. She thought that intelligence and upbringing are not often combined in one person. The girl wanted to find out where the boy acquired such skills. Shu came up with an answer and said that he was just an ordinary student from his country. Rubia decided that, probably, education in his country was very good. In fact, Sho dropped out of school in his homeland, so the girl's words caught him by surprise. However, he was truly impressed by the level of education in Japan. Soon they reached the river. The girl said that if the boy understood logic well, she would not have to teach him for long. Then he would be able to quickly master other types of magic as well. Meanwhile, Sho began doing something in the water. The boy took a small stone in his hand and struck the water with it. After a while, the fish began to float to the surface of the river. They lay completely motionless. When the man struck the stone underwater, a powerful wave stunned the fish, and Sho no longer needed to catch them himself. Then the man cleaned and cut the fish, laying it on the stone. Then Shaw dried the gutted fish using magic. It became dry, but it was just ordinary drying that turned proteins into amino acids. So he decided to repeat the magical effect, this time using fermentation magic. In a moment, the fish was already completely dried. The boy rejoiced, realizing how useful magic could be, and immediately hung the fish on a stick. Some time passed. In his life, Shaw experimented with various magical powers. He could set objects on fire, heat them, or even cool them down. In everyday life, he often used the magic of fermentation and plants to increase crop yields. The spells also made it possible to lighten the weight of things, and now he effortlessly carried even heavy objects. Magic based on physical phenomena was simple to use and did not require pronouncing spells. Such magic was called elemental, and it became very useful for daily tasks. Magic was used only for small things. For example, one could light a fire in a cauldron, but not engulf the entire area in flames. One could heat water only in a small pot, not in the whole pond. Everything depended on how it was used, and sometimes it even became offensive. And one time a man pondered magic while cooking over a fire. For example, heating magic works like a microwave oven. If such power is applied to a person, the water inside their body will start boiling, and they will die instantly. The boy felt anxiety at this thought. Such a death seemed to him a real horror. Soon the dishes were ready. Rubia looked at the appetizing food with delight and enjoyed its wonderful aroma. Everything turned out to be extremely tasty. She noticed the bread with honey and asked if the boy had been stung by bees while collecting the honey. He smiled and explained that he had enchanted the beehive beforehand, so no bee had stung him. Sho thought that if he took some honey, the bees would eventually be able to restore their hive. Feeling guilty, he decided that he should make another hive for them. Rubia gladly tasted the honey. She did not even suspect that the boy was passionate about cooking. Although he did not have much experience in cooking yet, the process itself brought him true joy. Sho meant that he liked doing various things. If a dish did not turn out well the first time, he tried to cook it again and calmly ate what came out. After lunch, Shaw went out into the yard. Near the house grew many plants resembling bamboo. The locals called them ticarito. Shaw noticed that these plants were easy to process and suitable for many needs. Suddenly, the guy in Toretto's cabin slightly cut his hand. Shaw felt a sharp pain and immediately regretted not wearing gloves. At that moment, he remembered the conversation that had happened recently. Shu asked Ruby if there is magic that heals. The girl replied that such magic exists. Then he clarified, can it be used to cure any disease or injury? However, healing magic had its limitations. It only enhanced the body's natural forces to recover, so it did not help if the illness was just beginning or had already gone too far. The boy was interested and wanted to ask the girl about healing magic once more, but for now he could not use this type of magic here. The girl immediately warned him, don't even think about trying to understand how it works. Recalling the previous conversation, Shaw put on gloves, cut a bamboo stalk, then took a thinner piece and inserted it inside. After that, he carefully placed this structure into the ground. Under his palms, magical energy immediately gathered. He directed the compressed air bubble straight into the bamboo tube. It entered effortlessly. The boy quickly plugged the hole with a piece of thick bamboo, then carefully eased the air pressure. When the air pressure decreased, the bamboo cork shot up rapidly. Seeing this, Sho laughed sincerely with joy. The experiment turned out exactly as he had hoped. If he had recorded it on video, the schoolchildren would have immediately become interested and made it popular. The boy wondered how to charge the phone and thought to record this experiment on video, but there was no electricity nearby. Suddenly, he heard someone's voice, and Shao turned to where the sound was coming from. Near the wooden house stood a horse-drawn carriage. A group of girls approached the door, hoping it would be opened for them. Among the 4 girls who appeared, 2 were dressed in maid costumes. They came to meet Rubia. Sho hid in the shadow of a tree and watched the unexpected guests with curiosity as he saw them for the first time. There were 4 girls in this group. One of them wore glasses, and another had funny cat ears. Both were dressed like maids. Another girl gave the impression of a true aristocrat. A luxurious tiara shone on her head. Standing next to this girl was her bodyguard. Ruby bowed and politely greeted the princess, but she looked displeased and asked to speak more simply. The blonde frowned, irritably asking herself why the princess had come. One of the girls with her had already entered the house, and for her everything was already clear. She was sure she already knew the real reason for the princess's visit. The witch initially thought she was being invited somewhere again. She had already refused the girl several times, but the reason the princess came turned out to be completely different. Rumors about Rubia were spreading throughout the castle. They told about a famous witch from Farline who picked up a little bird and gave it shelter. It was also mentioned that this girl often walked around the city, buying men's clothes and various things. Suddenly Sho appeared at the door, and the girls immediately became surprised. Now all the rumors about him were confirmed. He awkwardly offered to make tea, not fully understanding why they called him Birdie, and in fact he himself did not know how to behave in this situation. Rubia was surprised and a little annoyed that the girls came so far just for a trivial matter. She considered it a waste of the princess's time, but the princess herself was not worried about it. She simply decided to stop by Rubia's on the way home from work. Soon Shaw prepared tea and offered it to his guests. The boy gave his name and told the princess that he studies in Rubia. The girl was surprised, for even to a stranger his name sounded unusual. But the boy paid no attention to this. He lovingly prepared special sweets from his homeland for the princess. The girl looked at the dessert in surprise and thought it was a treat made from cow's milk. But this never happened. Shu handed the princess chocolate and told her that it was a very sweet and tasty treat. After that, the boy suggested the girl try the chocolate. Rubia and the princess looked suspiciously at the piece of chocolate. They did not trust this unfamiliar dish, but still together dared to taste it. When the chocolate was in their mouths, a blush appeared on their cheeks. Their cheeks blushed with happiness as they enjoyed the incredibly sweet chocolate that gently melted in their mouths. The princess was amazed. She had never tasted such a sweet and delicious dish before. Rubia looked at the boy with light in her eyes. She became curious about what this chocolate was and how it was made. Sho said that chocolate is most likely made from crushed nuts brought from the southern islands located at the edge of the world. They mix them with sugar and knead for a long time until the mass becomes homogeneous. The princess pondered, for sugar was considered a great rarity here, and finding it was extremely difficult. The girl asked the boy if he still had any chocolate left. Sho replied that almost everything was already sold out, but there was still a little. Then the princess said she wanted to buy everything that was left and asked how much it would cost. She offered Sho 3 gold coins. The boy quickly realized that he was given as many as 3 gold coins. In this world, 2 silver coins are enough to live for a whole month, which is about 100,000 yen. It turns out that 3 gold coins are approximately 600,000 yen. This amount impressed the boy, and he did not hide his excitement. Soon Sho received his 3 gold coins, and the princess took a whole bar of chocolate. She was a little upset that this time she also couldn't invite Rubia to the palace, but she cheered up because although the girl didn't get into the castle, she became richer with this chocolate. After that, the princess said goodbye and loudly closed the door behind her. Rubia and Shaw silently watched the locked door. Suddenly, the princess's voice sounded again. She was calling them to her. The master and the apprentice went out into the yard, still not understanding why the princess was still staying in their house. The princess looked at the device near the well with curiosity. She asked Sho to explain what it was for. Sho explained that it was a loud pump that helps lift water from the very bottom of the well. The man explained to the princess in detail how the pump works and demonstrated everything in practice. The princess was very surprised when she saw water flowing from the pump. It seemed like real magic to her. But in reality, everything turned out to be simpler. It was an ordinary trick, and anyone could do it. The girl also decided to try. She lifted the pump lever, and the water immediately started flowing. The princess became interested in the strange device and asked what it was. Sha took out a piece of bamboo for her. It was a water toy. He showed how it could shoot water. The princess looked at the bamboo toy with curiosity. Then the girl took it in her hands. Pressing it, she saw water suddenly spurt from the toy. Water splashed right onto the maid with cat ears. She meowed loudly and quickly ran away from the stream. The princess smiled and started splashing even more in her direction, while the maid amusingly tried to hide. The boy explained to the girl that if the hole in the toy was closed, the water would stop leaking. The princess listened carefully, and when the boy asked her a question, she quickly understood that if a hole was made on the other side, the water would spill onto her side. Now she finally understood how that boy knew how to pump water from the well. When he moved the pump up and down, a vacuum appeared in the pipe, and under pressure the water rose up along with the piston. It seemed like real magic of experienced craftsmen. The princess really liked that pump, so she asked Sho again to sell her that buzzing pump. Thanks to the advice, the princess dared to climb onto the illuminated well. Shu anxiously watched her, worrying that nothing would happen. However, the girl did not stop and was already standing on the well cover. At that moment, she remembered how the boy had introduced himself earlier and said his name. Now it was her turn to name herself. She introduced herself as Leela Farline. Sho was surprised to realize that the ruler of the country Farline herself was standing before him. The girl did not stop and continued to speak. Her voice sounded firm and proud, as she really wanted the boy to agree to her proposal. Leela invited Sho to visit her castle. Soon the carriage with horses calmly moved forward. Inside sat a thoughtful Sho, silently holding his backpack nearby. He recalled the conversation with the princess that had taken place recently. Sho confessed to Layla that he had previously been just an ordinary student. However, this meant nothing to the girl. She only needed his abilities. Since he had already understood so many truths, he could hardly be called a pupil. The girl told the boy that the state would take care of his food and clothing, and also that he would receive 3 gold coins every month. What he heard surprised the boy greatly, as this was almost 600,000 per month. The boy liked everything very much. The conditions suited him. Now he would have to spend some time in this world. After all, it is good to have money. The boy gladly accepted Princess Layla's offer, but suddenly he was stopped by Ruby's irritated exclamation. She warned him, emphasizing that it was only an invitation and he should not rush to agree. The boy really wanted to accept this offer, as it was very beneficial for him. Princess Leela was ready to do anything for the spectacle, and her words greatly surprised Ruby. Princess Leila immediately began threatening Ruby, promising to send an army against her if she did not agree to help. However, the sorceress firmly refused. Then the princess decided it would be better to offer Sho to take Ruby's place. Ruby only looked angrily at the princess, causing Sho to confusedly call his master. From the castle to Ruby's house was very close. Therefore, Sho could continue his training as before. However, Ruby was against this. Ruby decided to act because she could not allow her inexperienced pupil with a dangerous look like Sho's to lose control. If Sho decided to go to the castle, Ruby would also support him and go with him. The sorceress eventually agreed to the princess's proposal. Suddenly, the carriage wheels hit a large stone, and the entire carriage sharply tipped to the side. Everyone inside fell, and Sho was the most unlucky. During this jolt, he hit his head hard on the window glass. However, the boy did not feel all the pain because his attention was distracted by Princess Leila. She pressed closely to him, and her cheeks blushed. The girl looked anxiously at the dark-haired youth. Sho also wanted to understand how the princess felt, so he quietly spoke to her. Leila woke up and was momentarily confused. Princess Leila, coming to her senses, immediately pulled away from the boy. Her face flushed with a blush, and she embarrassedly assured that she was fine. Sitting nearby were her friends. A servant with glasses named Rumines, and another servant with cat ears named Mimo. Princess Leila turned 15 years old, and after the king and queen died of illness, she took it upon herself to rule the state independently. However, recently a strange event occurred that still troubled her, and she blamed the unusual carriage for everything. One could only ascend the throne at 18 years old, so governing the region was considered a routine matter. But Leila possessed remarkable abilities and considerable experience in everything related to the throne. She managed so well that even the ministers could not contradict her. Sho noticed that although Princess Leila was small in stature, she had real strength. The girl gave him an angry look at the very moment the carriage bounced again on the stone, and Sho was painfully hit a second time. He could not understand what the problem with this carriage was. Riding in it was very uncomfortable. The princess assured him that it was an ordinary carriage. At first, he thought the road was probably uneven. But later he realized that the problem was with the carriage itself. It was too rigid. The princess asked what a rigid carriage was. Sho explained to her. A rigid carriage is when the axle is firmly attached directly to the body. After this explanation, the princess became even more interested and wanted to learn about other types of carriages. A rigid cart can be improved by adding a suspension to it. Princess Leila did not quite understand what this man meant, but Sho did not explain anything further. Instead, he drew the shape of a bow that he needed to find out if it even existed. Such a bow shape already existed. The boy continued drawing, and soon another element appeared on the other side of the bow. If these two parts are connected, they form a rhombus. Then he added several more details to the drawing. When all the elements are combined, they begin to expand and contract, as shown in the illustration. Then the man suggested attaching the wheels on top and passing the axle underneath them. Thanks to this, when the carriage passes over large stones or pits, the suspension could bend and straighten, while the carriage itself would remain stable and not sway. The boy enthusiastically shared his plan. The girls froze in amazement. They did not expect such an invention at all. When he noticed their silence, he felt a little embarrassed. Sho had no idea why they were silent, as it seemed he had clearly explained the suspension. Suddenly, Princess Leila rose from her seat. She, with a diadem on her head, really wanted someone to bring Russell. The maids noticed that the princess was nervous and rushed to calm her down, since standing up in the carriage was dangerous. Russell was not nearby, so they could not turn to him for help. Meanwhile, Shaw could not hide his curiosity. He was eager to find out who this Russell was. The maid Rumines told the man that Russell was a skilled craftsman. At that moment, the man was working in the castle workshop. Unexpectedly, the girl called him, and Shaw instantly responded to her call. Princess Leila anxiously addressed the boy and said that when they arrived at the palace, he would need to tell about the pendant in the workshop. Soon they reached the castle. A large workshop opened before their eyes. The room was spacious and cozy, and at the very end a fireplace crackled quietly, near which various inventions were being created. Elves and gnomes worked here with inspiration. Princess Leila was in a great hurry to find Russell. Suddenly, a man with gray hair appeared before them. It was him, in response to the princess's call. Russell was surprised when he saw Leila in his workshop. When the man bowed to the girl, he immediately noticed that she was in high spirits. Leila stopped Russell because she really wanted to show him something important as soon as possible. Later, a new pump with a lid was installed in the workshop. When it was turned on, it began to leak water. To make the pump work properly, it was lowered into a bucket of water. All the workers were amazed at how well this invention worked. Russell enthusiastically told the princess that the pump would definitely be in great demand. The princess smiled happily, as she herself felt the same. Shaw began to talk about a pump he had made from bamboo, and that man believed it was better to use iron because the bamboo pump could easily break. The man realized that the boy was right. This sturdy iron mechanism could work for more than 10 years. Although it would be expensive, Princess Layla did not care about the money and was not worried about the price at all. The girl turned to the master named Rasil with a request to make a sample pump out of iron. Later, Layla decided to make one more change. Princess Layla asked Russell to create a carriage with suspension. She explained in detail how exactly such a suspension should work. Russell appreciated her idea, as thanks to it he would be able to make a carriage that could be sold profitably. The girl understood if a new high-speed carriage appeared on the market, rich and noble people would definitely want it and pay a lot of money. She felt joy from this thought. Sho began to explain what the pendant looks like. He drew it in the shape of a rhombus, but in reality, this pendant should be made of several boards of different lengths glued together. Russell became interested in why several boards of different lengths were used instead of one large board. Sean immediately realized that this man noticed everything very carefully. The man explained what a resonator is using the example of jumping on a branch. When you jump, the branch swings more and more, and Russell immediately remembered the show and understood what it was about because he had done the same in childhood. The show continued to explain, if someone swings too enthusiastically, the branch may eventually break, and boards of different lengths help evenly distribute the weight and prevent the branch from breaking. The shoemaker wanted to make the pendant strong, so he initially thought of using steel, but it is difficult to do this with spring steel, so the boy suggested using high-quality copper instead. He smiled and said that if the pendant was made so that it needed to be changed often and spare parts sold for it, then it would be possible to earn twice as much. Layla heard this and could not believe her ears. The girl quietly noted that the performance was wonderful. She realized that the boy was much more attentive and intelligent than he had seemed at first. When Princess Layla praised him, the boy smiled warmly in response. Sho again spoke about how to improve the design of the stroller. He suggested to the craftsman to add the ability to adjust the angle of the front wheels. Although this will add some complexity to the production, using the stroller will become much more convenient. The craftsman listened carefully to the boy and quickly realized that his idea would really help control the carriage, making sharp turns and U-turns much easier. The quality of the ride will also improve. At the exhibition, it is noticeable with what enthusiasm the craftsmen work. This is exactly how those who are engaged in production should treat their craft. They immediately understood everything the man was talking about. Moreover, the craftsman showed interest and wanted to learn more about the construction of the cart itself. After some time, the man headed to his workshop. Sho looked at the hut with satisfaction. Now it was his own workshop. Princess Layla assured him that the castle had all the necessary materials and masters who could make anything he could think of. The girl trusted him, so he set off to his workshop. The castle had not only a workshop, but also a forge where dwarves forged various things from metal and other materials. And in the craftsman's workshop, elves engaged in fine decoration and engraving, skillfully painting each product. He also noticed that the materials department stored many different types of wood. There was also some iron, but it was considered rare and very valuable here. Sho walked around the entire castle and on the way glanced into the maid's room. There he met familiar maids, among whom were Rumani's and the newcomer Omi. Seeing Sho, the new maid sincerely rejoiced. The workshop doors appeared before Sho. He realized that this was the master's office. Rubia was delayed because she was gathering her things for a long time and entered later, putting everything in its place. Sho offered to help, but Rubia refused. That way she would definitely know exactly where each thing was. Then the boy asked Rubia if there were any other masters in the castle. The girl confirmed that there really was an elven master of true teaching in the castle. This pleased the boy very much because a real elf was nearby. He really wanted to see them with his own eyes. Suddenly Rubia approached him, leaned closer, and quietly said that this elf was very old, and the sorceress had warned Sho not to approach the elven master. The boy was still recalling Rubia's words, which made him a little wary, but instead of stopping, he became even more inquisitive. Sho really wanted to see real elves, and at that moment, as he was walking further, he noticed a door ajar on the way. Sho became interested when he noticed her and decided to approach closer. The bright light from the room attracted him, so the boy wanted to find out what was happening there. But just as he was about to enter, he suddenly heard the sharp click of heels nearby. Someone shouted at the boy irritably, and frightened, he sharply turned to the side from which the voice came. Before him stood an elf woman, obviously displeased to see him there. She did not recognize the boy and decided that he belonged to the Imperials. The elf girl looked at the man with suspicion, still thinking that he might be an imperial spy. Sho was surprised by her height. She was truly tall. In those days, the boy looked up at the tall elephant, because he had heard that elves grow all their lives and can reach over 2 meters tall when they are over 1,000 years old. The boy finally realized that the person standing before him was the very master Rubio had mentioned. The elf girl looked at the stranger with suspicion and quite irritably, still thinking that he could be a spy. The boy anxiously assured the girl that he was not a spy, and then hurried to say that he was a student of Master Rubio. After these words, the girl suddenly changed. She took Sho by the chin and carefully, calmly examined his face. Hearing that Rubio had a student, the elf immediately wanted to see what he looked like. Hearing these words, the girl suddenly wondered how Rubio was doing. She felt a little embarrassed because she realized that she had not even greeted her colleague. Sho told the elf that his master had stayed in the castle because Rubio was planning to move and needed to prepare. The girl became interested in why he, as Rubio's student, had not come to greet her. The boy explained to the girl once again that he had many things to do, but Sho still promised that he would visit later to say hello. However, the problem remained unresolved, and the elf was still not thrilled about the situation. But suddenly she pushed the boy into her office. Then the girl noticed that he knew nothing about her relationship with Rubio, so she allowed him to take the blame for her master's rudeness. Sho became very interested in who this elf girl was. She did not delay and immediately gave her name Stella. Stella said that if Sho really was Rubio's student, he should know who she really was. Sho also gave his name in response and added that he was studying under Rubio. After that, the man, a little confused, reached into the inside pocket of his jacket as if looking for something. He took out a gift he had prepared for this meeting. Soon the boy found what he was looking for. He extended his hand and opened his palm, showing the girl 2 small red berries. For Sho, this was a real treasure and a special gift. Stella was very surprised by his gift. It was not just a small fruit, but also extremely valuable, as the berry glowed with a rare ruby color. The girl hesitantly took the gift, pretending that she really liked the material. After that, Stella, like a true leader, pointed to the chair and invited the man to sit down while the elf prepared the pico drink. Soon the pico was ready, and the girl served it to the boy. Sean immediately felt that the drink somehow resembled coffee. It had a similar color and a pleasant coffee aroma. The Sho took a cup and took a sip of pico. The drink turned out to be tasty, a perfect balance of aroma and bitterness. Everything was harmonious, but despite this, the boy still felt longing for his native world. Having tried the pico drink, the boy became interested in whether it could be easily found. It turned out that the drink was not hard to get, although it cost a bit more, but it could be bought without problems in the city, and Della promised the boy to show her favorite store. Suddenly, the girl changed the subject and asked who this boy really was. Shu looked at her confusedly, still not understanding what exactly she was asking about. The boy was only a student of a real scientist, but the girl did not believe him. Stella noticed that for this continent, he had a good education and good manners. And such education occurs only among royal families, nobility, or wealthy merchants. She could not recall a single boy his age who fit that description. Shaw was surprised that the girl knew everyone in her circle. Della remembered each one, as they were all important clients. The boy honestly admitted that he came from a distant country that Stella had never even heard of, but this did not dispel her suspicions. She still did not trust him. The boy, looking tense, briefly explained, "It's all because of the sea." After that, he was silent and added nothing more. The girl was confused. She did not like his mysterious words at all. But Shaw understood. There are secrets that Stella is better off not knowing, and that is right. He deliberately did not reveal the whole truth to her, only hinted with a proverb, saying that excessive curiosity can lead to trouble. Sho was well aware that, being a student of the Master Rubia, he attracted her special attention. However, he felt that they still lacked trust for frank conversations. Stella. Hearing this, Stella only frowned, dissatisfied with his answer. Then the girl began to recall similar proverbs from her native land in this world, and noticed that indeed many people feel happier when they know nothing. Stella quickly changed the subject. Her gaze lingered on lil merch berries. She curiously asked where the boy managed to find such berries, as these bright red fruits are rare. Sho told the girl that he found these berries in the forest. Then she guessed that if he saw the berries, he probably noticed the flowers too. The boy confirmed this, and Stella carefully looked at the berries and put them in her box. Some time passed and the boy drew a flower on the board. A bright red fruit grew from it. The flower was white and had 5 petals. Sho noticed its amazing beauty. Stella carefully examined the boy's drawing. The flower on it was exactly like in ancient legends. Therefore, Sho suggested going together in search of white flowers. He was well oriented in the local forest, but could not guarantee that the flowers would bloom exactly when they arrived. Stella looked at the boy in surprise, her cheeks reddened. Sho looked at the girl suspiciously in response. She found his confused expression amusing but restrained herself from laughing. Stella concluded that the boy himself did not understand what he was saying. Now she was completely convinced that he really came from another country, and Sho remained completely confused. Isn't it a miracle that during the show it was possible to demonstrate the lil merch flowers? The boy understood everything, but the flowers withered very quickly. When the emotions subsided, Stella explained to him that you can't just call someone and show these flowers like that. Sho did not grasp what exactly she meant. Finally, the boy understood what Stella meant. His cheeks immediately flushed red with embarrassment. At that moment, Sho remembered how Ruby looked at him in surprise when he told her that they would stay together until the flowers bloomed, and no one knew exactly when that would happen. Finally, the boy realized what was going on. His cheeks burned with shame. He guessed why Ruby looked at him so strangely. Stella understood that he had told her everything. Sho was embarrassed and began to justify himself, explaining that he did not understand the meaning of those words at the time. Stella calmly got up from the chair, slowly took off her cloak, and laid it on the floor. The elf was about to say something but hesitated. Stella slowly approached the boy. It became clear to her, since he spoke like that, it meant there was nothing between him and Rubia. She gently ran her fingers over his chin, and Sho looked into her eyes in confusion. The girl casually said that maybe it was worth trying together with him. Stella looked at the boy with a special, enchanting gaze. Sho, impressed by her words, just watched her, not knowing what to say. But the guy finally came to his senses and could not understand why Stella paid attention to him specifically. With her charm, she could have chosen anyone, but Stella gently took his hand and with a light flirt whispered that she was tired of the rest of the men in this castle. The boy was powerless before the determination of the elf Stella. She persistently pressed him against the sofa and ordered him to lie down, wanting to see if he would resist or try to use anti-magic. And at that very moment, the door to the room suddenly swung wide open. Rubia appeared in the office doorway with a gloomy look. The sorceress cast a sad glance at those in the room, and the boy looked confusedly at the master. Without saying a word, Rubia approached the sofa where the boy and girl were still in an awkward position and sharply pushed them apart, knocking both off the sofa. The angry blonde grabbed the guy by the collar. She did not expect to see him in Stella's office at all, but he still showed up there. Earlier, the girl had asked him not to come near, but now, because of the situation with the show, they had no choice left. Unexpectedly, Stella approached the boy and hugged him tightly. Sho was confused and blushed, not knowing how to behave. The elfess spoke in a seductive voice, which completely embarrassed him. But Stella did not stop and continued pretending. She approached the boy and noticed his round ears. The girl became interested in him and wanted to learn more about him to make him fall in love with her. At that moment, Rubia called Stella. The sorceress frowned and really wanted Stella to leave the show, but the elf refused to abandon that boy. She was captivated by the events and had no intention of stopping at all. Then Stella told Ruby that she could not stay, since he himself had invited her to admire the white flowers. The sorceress exclaimed in surprise and was very astonished by these words. Sho felt awkward and wanted to explain everything. Ruby had previously told him what it really means to invite someone to see the flowers. That is why he decided to share this with Stella. Stella approached the confused boy again, while the light Sho flickered around them. She admitted that Sho was very different from everyone she had known before. The girl felt a special connection between them, as if they were truly made for each other. But Rubia sharply stopped Stella and turned to the elf. The elf and the boy looked at the sorceress in surprise, who was trembling with strong emotions. But later, Rubia dared and shyly confessed to Stella that it was Shaw who first suggested they admire the flowers together. At these words, she closed her eyes, and her cheeks instantly flushed with excitement. Silence reigned in the room for a few seconds. Shaw looked at Rubia in confusion, and his cheeks turned pink. He did not expect such frankness from her. Stella could not hold back and laughed loudly. She was amused by Rubia's sincere words, so the witch from Farline blushed in offense. Rubia blushed with anger at the girl's words. Embarrassed, she indignantly replied that she was only 24 years old, and her naivety had nothing to do with it. Rubia added that she was by no means as old as Stella, who was already a full 450 years old. When Shaw learned how old Stella was, he looked at the girl with surprise and admiration. It was hard to believe she was already 450 years old. This is what it means to be an elf. The boy watched the motionless elf with interest, not believing that someone could live so many years. Stella was offended by his words and recalled the importance of memory. It became known that the angry Stella tried to erase his memory. She wanted him to forget her real age and cast a spell on him, but he was amazed that somehow he managed to avoid her magic. The boy watched the enraged girl with concern. When the dust from her attack cleared, Stella's silhouette appeared in it. She cast a gloomy look at the boy and used her magic again. Now she definitely would not miss. The piercing scream of a boy sounded in Stella's office, and smoke from her attacks escaped from under the door. Princess Layla, hearing the noise, hurried to find out what had happened. Shaw immediately ran to her, and the pale boy warned Layla that entering the office was very dangerous. He silently picked up the girl in his arms, even surprised at how light she was. Shaw rushed out of the office without looking back, and behind him rang Stella's angry scream. After some time, the man still managed to break free from Stella. Gasping and tired from the long run, he leaned against the wall to rest. The princess watched this and thought that elves are indeed wise creatures, but even they are not always helped by common sense. The girl was delighted when she saw that they had reached the stairs in the tower. She told the boy that a wonderful view opens from above. Princess Leia wanted to share this landscape with him. Shaw noticed that there were many stairs here, and the tower itself seemed extremely tall. He jokingly complained that he could use an elevator. For Princess Layla, this word was unfamiliar. She heard elevator for the first time in her life and immediately became interested in what it was. The boy told her that when they install the wardrobe at the top of the tower, they can use a rope to lift it into the storeroom. But for this, someone will be needed to pull the rope. A load slightly heavier than the girl will be attached to the rope and carefully lowered from the upper floor. Then someone will slowly lift the load up. Princess Layla was delighted because now she understood how the elevator works. At first, they needed someone who could lift the weight directly in the elevator. Now, that was all they could do. The boy understood the reason. There was no electricity in this world. Still, he thought that this option was not the best. If someone wins, someone else must suffer defeat. When it becomes easier for one, another has to suffer. Soon, Shu and Layla reached the very top of the tower. The boy held his breath, admiring the incredible view unfolding before him. Princess Layla shared that she occasionally visits here when the sky is clear. She loves watching the city sparkling with lights, and these moments bring her relief and peace of mind. The girl understood that loyal vassals and common people had brought her to this position. The princess spoke these words, directing her gaze into the distance. Shu explained to her that attempts to make everything simpler can cause pain to others. The same goes for royal power. When rulers strive to simplify everything, the people's lives become more complicated. Although the girl was only 15 years old, she already understood these things well. Princess Layla sincerely addressed Shu because she relied heavily on him. She was confident that with such a true scientist as he, the festival would be a great success. The girl happily announced that together they would do everything to make their country flourish. Shu realized that knowledge about the old world could become the key to the development of this country. However, he was worried that if people became too obsessed with technology, they might be accused of heresy. On the other hand, if travelers from other countries came here, he would have a chance to learn something important that would help him return home. Meanwhile, Princess Layla and Shu enjoyed the beautiful landscapes. Shu approached the princess and addressed her. With enthusiasm, he promised that together they would make every effort to create a great invention that would bring wealth to this country. Farline is a small town, which is also called a separate state. Shu spent a little more than 2 weeks in the castle. He could no longer endure it. Shu lay on the floor, strangely bent. His stomach loudly grumbled from hunger. He really longed to taste Japanese food. Looking at his sad situation, Shu almost cried. With all his heart, he dreamed of tasting miso soup and onigiri at least once more. After some time, the boy went out onto the street. He came to the market near the castle, where numerous stalls with various goods stood. The man came to the market in search of rice and miso, but could not find anything like that. Instead, he only came across barley, which did not resemble rice at all. Shu noticed how many different fish products were sold at the market. It was clear that they knew well how to dry and transport fish even from distant places, although fresh fish from the nearest waters was still brought not so quickly because the journey took a lot of time. Another important element of Japanese cuisine is soy sauce. The man wondered where he could find glutamate to make it himself. Soon the boy approached the seafood counter. The seller noticed him and offered help with the selection. Then Shu explained that he was looking for dried seaweed. This request surprised the seller. The seller rummaged through his things in search of the goods. Eventually, he took out seaweed, but was not sure if that was exactly what the buyer needed. The seaweed looked white, as if covered with mold. The seller told Shaw that he was already preparing to throw it away because no one buys such, but Shaw was very surprised, as it was not mold. On the contrary, such seaweed is considered the best and adds a special flavor to dishes. He immediately told the seller that he was buying them, chose dried fish, and also asked to be given some seaweed as a gift. The seller gladly agreed and gave him all the products. Soon he returned home with a large bag of groceries in his hands. He was genuinely glad that he was able to go shopping. After bringing everything home, he neatly arranged the groceries. He bought cereals, vegetables, and a few other different items. At the beginning of the show, I decided to make broth for soup from laminaria using a recipe from my world. He remembered that first it was necessary to cut the seaweed into small pieces and then pour hot water over them. Next, you only need to salt a little on top, and the simple soup is ready. The boy tried his dish with curiosity and was satisfied. It was truly incredible. The boy enjoyed the aroma and taste of the soup, which seemed especially delicious to him. The seaweed was just like in his native world. When Sho tasted the soup from his world, he immediately remembered his mother. He thought that she was probably very worried because he was not nearby. The boy was not even sure if his world remained unharmed. Maybe only he fainted when the light went out. These thoughts made him sad, so he started cooking and experimenting with food again. Sho remembered the water wheel from the workshop because it could be useful for making a mill for barley. Mortars and pestles would be enough for his needs, but the work was very hard and took a lot of strength, so he decided to make the task easier and mechanize everything. The boy used the water wheel to invent a device for cleaning barley. He made a large mortar mechanical, and now the mechanism easily husked the grain. After some time, he already had clean barley grain. When Sho got the cleaned barley, he decided to cook it. He tasted the finished dish. The smell was a bit unusual, but the taste was pleasant. However, the barley remained too dry after cooking, so it was not suitable for making tortillas. The next day, Sho took on a special task. He decided to make miso for the first time in this new world. Rubia watched the young man suspiciously, who was glowing with excitement. It seemed that another strange idea was brewing in his head. Sho dreamed of surprising his mentor by making a unique and bright first step that would go down in the history of this world. Miso was made from soybeans. He found these beans, but they looked different from those he was used to in his world. Salt is absolutely necessary for this dish. There is no problem with it here. It can be easily found. Malt is also needed, but the boy did not have rice, so he decided to use barley malt. Thus, instead of the classic, it would rather be barley miso. Making miso here could take a lot of time, but thanks to the magic of this world, everything turned out much easier. The boy enthusiastically began to prepare the dish, and even if something suddenly failed, he could always try again. At first, the boy carefully watered the barley, and then warmed it with magic. It was truly a special microwave oven. The boy used it so that the tools heated up to at least 100 degrees. Disinfection was extremely important because if microbes got inside, all the equipment would immediately stop working. When everything was ready, the boy divided the steamed barley into small piles. Then he used magic to accelerate growth. Strange deposits appeared on the surface. Ruby decided that it was mold. She warned the boy that such food should not be eaten because it could be dangerous due to the mold. Shu calmed her and explained, the yellow spots on the barley were not ordinary mold, but sesame mold. In Japan, miso is characterized by white mold, but in this world it had changed and become different. All of this was enough for the required amount. Koji was almost ready. Soon the sorceress who was working with the grain felt a pleasant, sweet aroma. As soon as the smell spread through the room, the beans were steamed again and carefully mashed in the magical microwave. After that, Shu and Ruby carefully mixed salt with barley malt using only their own hands. They shaped balls from the resulting mass. Ruby watched the boy with distrust, as she still did not believe that it could be eaten. The boy reassured her, explaining that if the fermentation went well, the dish would definitely be tasty. They put all the ingredients into a pre-sterilized jar, then tightly screwed on the lid. Shu read a spell to speed up the fermentation. Everything matured for about an hour, occasionally taking breaks. The boy sat down on the floor in a strange way. Meanwhile, Ruby calmly enjoyed her tea. Everyone silently waited for the preparation to finish. With the help of magic, the boy reduced the cooking time of the dish from a whole year to just 1 hour. Only 60 minutes passed, and his miso was already ready. Shu opened the jar, and the pleasant smell of fresh miso immediately filled the room. Miso from another world was already ready to eat. The boy watched the dish with admiration and joy. Ruby still did not trust it, as she had never heard of miso before. Meanwhile, in a remote corner of the castle courtyard, a maid with cat ears named Nimue was diligently sweeping the area. She stopped with curiosity, looking around to find where the appetizing aroma from Shu's house was coming from. The boy showed the girl the dish he had prepared. It was miso soup with pork. The girl had never heard of such soup before, so he explained to her that it was a traditional dish from his homeland. For the broth, he used kombu and dried fish. Miso soup was cooked with vegetables. There were potatoes, onions, and carrots. Unfortunately, Sho did not find anything resembling radish. Besides miso soup, the boy boiled barley rice and fried some meat. He prepared all this to complement the taste of the miso soup. Soon he arranged all the prepared dishes on the table. The fragrant steam quickly spread around the room. Shu placed bamboo chopsticks next to the dishes. Now everything looked like a real Japanese meal. The boy could not hold back tears as he ate the dish he had prepared himself. In the familiar taste, he felt something native, Japanese. Then he turned to Rubia, encouraging her not to be shy and to try the treat, but the girl hesitated a little, as she was seeing such a dish for the first time and was a bit afraid to taste it. Suddenly there was a knock on the door of the Shaw house, and a voice called the master. It was the new maid, attracted by the delicious aroma of the dish, curious about what was being cooked in the kitchen. Then the boy offered the maid to taste the dish he had prepared himself. The girl cautiously approached the table and could not believe her eyes. Nemu frowned, looking at the unfamiliar dishes. She thought the boy had cooked something from insect eggs because the barley reminded her of exactly that, and the miso soup scared her with its murky water, so the girl felt anxious. Sho told the girl that he could not give her this, explaining that it was actually just pork soup. At that moment Stella entered the room, and then the elf called Sho. Princess Layla entered the room together with Stella. The boy greeted both girls. Stella turned out to be very hungry, so as soon as they, along with the princess, smelled the delicious aroma of food, both of them came to life. He was not worried at all about the unexpected guests, as he had prepared many dishes. He was sure that the appetizing smell would soon bring everyone to the kitchen. Not knowing whether they would like the treats, he still sincerely shared his dishes. Later, when Nishima tasted the food, her face blossomed with joy. She began to eat quickly because the dishes were extremely delicious. Seeing Nishima enjoying the meal enthusiastically, Rubia also decided to try. Rubia tried the soup and was surprised. The taste was surprisingly pleasant. Stella could not understand how a dish that looked so unappetizing could be so delicious. Princess Layla was also amazed by this. Princess Layla noticed pieces of carrot in the soup. She never liked this vegetable because it always seemed too bitter to her. But after tasting the carrot from the soup, Layla suddenly felt that the taste was completely different, pleasant, and even a little sweet. She was surprised by such an unexpectedness. The man explained that the taste changed due to a special process called lye removal. To get rid of bitterness, Kamado ash is usually used. The girls heard about this special ash for the first time and were very surprised by its properties. When the man explained how to remove bitterness, he simply gave Numi a regular carrot. The maid tasted it but felt a sharp, unpleasant bitterness. After the demonstration, Sho dipped the carrot into water and then sprinkled it with lye. Using magic, he made the lye react quickly with the carrot. Numi took the carrot out of the plate with water and carefully tried it. To the girl's surprise, the vegetable turned out to be tasty, without any bitterness. She was amazed and decided that there must be some magic in it. However, the man disagreed with her. He said he used magic only to make the process faster. Even without magic, you can leave the carrot in brine overnight. Stella reacted with surprise, not even suspecting that the lye had disappeared. Then the elf got up from the table and thanked the boy for the delicious lunch. Now that Stella was no longer hungry, she had another desire. The elf quickly approached the boy and caused a blush on his face due to unexpected embarrassment. Seeing this, Numi watched them with interest. She was overwhelmed with excitement, and her cat ears trembled with arousal. She thought, if Stella could do that on the show, then she could too. After this thought, Numi decisively jumped on the boy. Sho fell onto the bed, and Stella with Nemo ended up on top, pressing him with their bodies. The elf told me that she has long been involved in similar adventures as a threesome. She admitted that she especially likes moments when a beastman participates with her. Nothing happened. Rubia held her magic staff intently and looked sternly at the boy. He suddenly got scared, tried to run away from the girls, but at that moment someone firmly grabbed his hand. Princess Layla stood before Shu. She came closer than usual and gently embraced him. With a smile on her lips, she coquettishly asked to be treated to something sweet after dinner. Shu was momentarily embarrassed and found nothing to say. His cheeks instantly flushed with a blush. Here the boy finally understood what was happening, but still couldn't figure out what the girl was talking about. Princess Leela got angry because she had asked for a black sweet dish. Only then did Sho guess that it was about chocolate. But unfortunately, he no longer had any chocolate left. Princess Layla will always remember what chocolate tasted like. She often fondly recalled that sweet dessert. One day a boy asked her a question. He wanted to know if Layla could get some sugar. The girl got angry at the boy's question because sugar was expensive. She knew that if she took sugar for herself, people would think she was wasting money. Princess Layla did not want to be like those greedy aristocrats at all, so she pushed the boy away angrily and said she had important duties. A moment later, her sad scream echoed in the air. The princess pretended to cry out of hurt feelings. She thought that if they hadn't sold all the new things, this might not have happened. Stella and Numi reproached the boy for upsetting the princess to tears. Rubia just silently watched everything. Sho was confused and didn't know how to behave in this situation. Suddenly, Princess Layla stopped crying, looked down at the man, and told him to come up with something. Shu had no choice but to agree and carry out her order. The girl, with a sly smile, recalled how the boy promised to solve this matter. Now Sho has no choice. He gave his word, and words spoken before a royal person cannot be taken back. Some time passed and everyone went home. It was already getting dark outside, and the boy was left alone in the room. Sho felt confused because the chocolate was finished and he couldn't imagine how to get out of this situation. However, he thought that he could try to replace the sweet chocolate with syrup. Once malt sugar obtained from barley was often used to prepare drinks. When barley grains begin to sprout, they develop a special enzyme capable of converting the starch inside into sweet sugar. And even if on the set chocolate is replaced with syrup, it will take very little time, and Princess Layla will want real chocolate again. In this world, cocoa did not exist. Shu did not even know what it was. Therefore, he began to wonder if something similar could be found as a substitute. Suddenly, the guy remembered how he once read that in one South American country, a roasted large spider is considered a delicacy, and they even say it tastes like chocolate. Therefore, the dish had to be really tasty. Recalling this incident, Shaw remembered how a spider bit him near the waterfall, and he almost fainted then. So now the boy was a little worried that the opponent might use the spider again. After some time, the boy opened the door to the master's office and called Rubia. At that moment, the sorceress was busy reading a magical scroll. The boy asked her about the spider and inquired whether it lived near the waterfall. Rubia replied that the spider indeed lived near the waterfall. The spider hunts animals that gather near the water, so they can often be found near bodies of water. Shaw understood the girl's explanation, and Rubia cast a suspicious glance at the boy and really wanted to find out what he was planning this time. Shaw smiled and told the mentor that he wanted to eat this spider. The sorceress looked at her student Fazian suspiciously and asked again. However, Shaw repeated once more that he really wanted to eat it. The girl suddenly turned pale and covered her mouth with her hand. She froze in surprise, but after a short pause, she asked the boy if he even knew the name of this spider. Shaw looked at the girl with a confused expression, but she remained silent and explained nothing. However, it was this very girl who encouraged him to eat the spider and then noted that he had poisonous glands in his head and chest. So the boy set off deep into the forest thicket to catch the spider that dared to attack him. At that moment, Shaw was eagerly searching for the spider. Once he was the main hero, whom Slime defeated at the very beginning of the game. But now, when magic appeared in the story and the hero felt a new power within himself, he decided to find the spider just for fun. And suddenly, Russell unexpectedly emerged from the bushes. Before the boy stood a spider that resembled a creature from the waterfall, only this time it was so gigantic that it looked more like a large crab. Shaw watched the spider that appeared before him with a weary look. This spider seemed very small compared to the one that bit him earlier. Destroying it would be easy. It was enough just to heat everything up using magic. But the boy remembered that he had heard about crabs. When they are destroyed, they emit a disgusting smell, and no one likes that on the show. This spider looked very much like a crab, and there was even an urban legend about it. So the man decided not to warm the spider, but simply to freeze it. With the help of magic, Sho effortlessly defeated the spider. In a normal situation, this could have been a real problem, but this time he just froze the creature, and it could no longer move. Smiling cheerfully, the boy picked up the motionless spider and carefully put it in a bag. Shortly after that, Sho was already heading home. When Sho was in the forest, he caught 3 large spiders. He took them out of the bag and tied their legs with a rope. Then he used magic to warm them up. When the spider's shell heated up, its color changed from chestnut to purple. Seeing this, the boy did not feel much appetite, but thought that the spider could already be eaten. Sho cut the spider into several parts. He placed the poisonous parts separately in a bowl. Learning that the poison in the spider's glands causes paralysis, Sho thought that it could be used as a painkiller. The black-haired boy carefully cut off the poisonous parts of the spider and began to eat it. He broke the hard shells on the legs and saw meat underneath, very similar to that of a king crab. Sho looked closely at this piece of meat. He did not think there was poison left there, but still looked at the food with some fatigue. The boy accidentally stumbled and bit off a piece of meat. After tasting it, he was pleasantly surprised. The taste turned out to be even better than crab meat. After that, Sho wanted to try rice with crab fried in a pan. The boy finally composed himself. His goal was not only to get meat that resembled crab. Sho tasted the liquid from the spider's abdomen. It turned out to be bitter, like coffee. After some time, the boy again went to his mentor's workshop. He told Ruby that the chocolate was already made and showed her a bowl with these sweets. They looked much more attractive than the chocolate from Coco. She fearfully noticed that he had made chocolate from a spider, and her eyes immediately widened in surprise. The boy was already excited to try the treat, but the girl, overwhelmed with disgust, shouted at him to stop immediately. She could not even imagine how he was going to eat this chocolate. Sho frowned discontentedly because of Rubia's scream and looked at her sternly. He believed that for a true researcher, which Rubia was, such chocolate should not be disgusting just because it was made from a spider. She had to investigate it herself. Rubia blushed upon hearing his words. She had to eat a piece of chocolate. She timidly brought it to her lips, quickly swallowed it, and within a second her face lit up with a smile. The chocolate turned out to be very tasty. This time the chocolate was tastier than usual, and Rubia became interested in how the boy managed to make it. Sho explained that he first used liquid from the spider's abdomen. At these words, the sorceress exclaimed in amazement. Next, Sho combined the obtained liquid with malt syrup and heated it slightly to better reveal the aroma. However, the taste was weak, so he decided to add some milk fat. Thanks to fresh ingredients and also a generous portion of cream and butter, this chocolate turned out even tastier than the one recently bought in the store. Suddenly, the boy noticed that Rubia was not listening to him at all. She was too captivated, enjoying every piece of chocolate. Leaving the workshop, the boy warned her. He was still not sure that this product was completely safe, so she better not rush to taste the chocolate. Meanwhile, Sho prepared to visit the princess to tell her about the progress of the chocolate preparation. Soon the boy entered the throne room. He informed Layla that he had prepared chocolate for her. The princess praised his efforts, and Nate Chocolate solemnly carried the sweet gift directly to her. The princess became interested in what the potion consisted of, since Sho said that the ingredients were very hard to find. But later, he said that he had already found a substitute and pulled out the spider. Layla almost lost consciousness from fear, but the maids caught her in time and prevented her from falling. Meanwhile, the boy finally learned the spider's name, and the angry princess asked why it was exactly purple. Often medicines were made from the bodies of animals and even monsters. The princess was a bit doubtful, but when Rumans came to arrest you, the maid dared to be the first to try that chocolate. Rumoni tried it and was delighted. The taste turned out sweet and rich. She could not stop. Layla rejoiced and also wanted to taste it. But suddenly something strange happened to Ruminas. She suddenly turned pale and covered her mouth with her palm. Everyone around became worried because of this unexpected change in the labyrinth. The boy picked up Ruminis from the floor, who had fallen. Everyone around was worried about the maid's condition. Ruminis gently nestled against him with her attractive body and asked to be called simply Rumi. Shaw, whose entire face was flushed with a blush, looked at her with surprise and admiration. The girl, breathing heavily and all flushed, was kneeling and gently calling Sean. At that moment, the boy fully understood what was happening. He quickly ran out of the throne room, heading to his mentor. He left the girls alone. In his heart, the boy hoped that even if there really was poison in the chocolate, Master Rubio would surely handle this trouble with his magic. Soon the boy entered the girl's room, anxiously called the master, but the girl was already lying unconscious on the floor. She was breathing heavily and felt the same as Rumenesis. The girl looked at the boy seductively, and due to the effect of the chocolate, her skin had acquired an attractive blush. When Shaw noticed the sorceress, blood suddenly started flowing from his nose. The girl, barely catching her breath, could not believe that he had forced her to eat it. Her scream echoed throughout the castle. She called him a fool. Some time passed, and the man entered the throne room again. The chocolate he had prepared turned out to be extremely strong. Its effect was so powerful that even the master himself could not resist. The mark on his cheek only confirmed this. Princess Layla was delighted and immediately wanted to start producing this chocolate in large quantities. The boy heard her and was surprised, as he thought it might be dangerous. But due to the influence of the chocolate, many were willing to give all their money to get it, especially if there was no antidote. The princess had no doubt about this. After some time, in Master Russell's workshop, he was happily savoring a dish made from a prepared spider. Since childhood, this man had often observed spiders and could not believe that for so many years he had not realized how tasty they actually were. The man praised the boy for coming up with the idea to use the spider as food. He said it was a true master's idea, especially now that they had learned to make chocolate. Now they needed to prepare for large-scale production. The man told the boy that recently he had a feeling as if they were approaching something important. He felt that the time for great changes had come. On the deserted field, a ladder suddenly appeared. The man looked at it and could not understand. Did it lead up to the sky or down to hell? The craftsman listened carefully to the man and agreed with his words. He also thought that the main events would unfold precisely in Fartackling. After all, there was no other invention like theirs anywhere else. Shu was glad that their idea was noticed and appreciated, but on the way to success, they had to overcome many obstacles. Russell could not understand what difficulties that man was talking about. Then Shaw explained to him that their biggest problem was fuel. It was necessary to create the invention and spread it all over the world. But they only had firewood and coal at their disposal. Obtaining good coal for smelting iron has become difficult. The city is rapidly expanding, and soon it may start to lack fuel here. In the forests of Farline there is indeed a lot of wood, but even if all this wood is cut down, it will not help solve the main problem. If the forest is destroyed, it will take hundreds of years for it to grow back. There is a danger that deforestation could turn the land into a desert. This is exactly how cities in the world of the show sank into the sand. Moreover, the boy knew that since Princess Layla's childhood, the forest had become much smaller. The trees were cut down for firewood, but in Farlane the winters were not so cold, so this firewood was hardly used for heating. Wood was taken from the forest. It was used to start fires for cooking and heating the bathhouse. Charcoal was also obtained from the forest, as it was needed for the smithy. If the city continues to grow, there will be more people, and the demand for firewood and charcoal will also increase rapidly. If coal or oil existed in this world, it would be easier, but here they had never even heard of such things. The master understood that cutting down trees was bad, but for him the forest was just a forest. Sho thought differently. Fertile lands, productive fields, clean water, rains, and favorable weather, all of this exists precisely because of the forests. It is the forest that retains water so that people always have access to it. If you only chase easy money, you can harm the entire country. Hearing these words from Shaw, the men could not hide their surprise. The dark-haired boy pondered what lies ahead. Some time passed and Shaw was already standing at the top of the tower. He enjoyed the view of Farline, alone with the beautiful landscape. This place gave him a sense of peace, so Shaw took out his phone from the inner pocket of his jacket. The boy held the phone in his hands, hoping to take a photo of the picturesque Farlane landscape. He was sure he could do it, but suddenly the phone turned off. The battery ran out. He pondered coal, oil, and electricity. He really needed all of it to exist. Suddenly, an idea appeared in his mind, to create something magical that could give the show power and energy. The next day the boy clapped his hands joyfully because he had a new idea. He was so eager to try it out that he immediately decided to test his plan on the show. He was the kind of person who, when he comes up with something, cannot sit still until he tries it himself. At that time, Sho was conjuring to dry up the stream flowing next to the workshop. It was artificial air coming from the windmill. At first, he wanted to make a garden here, but he realized that then the air pressure would decrease. Where thick steam rose, he wanted to use a spell to reduce the pressure. His magic made the air stir. Soon the clouds thickened, the sky darkened, and lightning thundered. The boy rejoiced for a moment, but quickly realized he needed to stop and immediately removed his spells. Shu was so captivated that it would have become dangerous if it had continued. After some time passed, the boy drove a metal rod into the ground. He realized he needed to act more cautiously. Returning to the Shaw house, he used his magic again, and clouds with lightning immediately gathered in the sky. The lightning bolt headed straight for the iron rod. Sho finally managed to call a lightning strike using magic and a magic wand. He realized that if he created a large column of clouds, he could charge it in just a minute. The range of this magic was about 100 meters. Sho could not achieve more for now. Sho approached the place where the strike hit. When he got closer, a sharp smell of ozone was in the air. He immediately thought that it could be dangerous for health. If the water stream is powerful, Sho will be able to use it. If a narrow passage in the shape of the letter T is arranged and a fast current is sent through it, everything could really work out. While the man was crafting the T-shaped column, Ruminius suddenly approached him. At that moment, Sho noticed a girl standing in the doorway of his house. The maid told him that Nemo was scared because of the thunder that had sounded, and she came to make sure he was okay. The boy realized his fault. He admitted to her that he was just trying to use magic. The boy and the girl went outside. This was supposed to be the boy's last experiment. Rumins was worried about what was happening. Sho said he wanted to make the lightning strike the iron rods and melt them. After his explanation, Sho decided to use the spell lightning. He didn't even need to say the words, but a magical girl was standing nearby, watching him closely. As a person who used to like attracting attention, Sho could not miss such an opportunity, so he demonstrated the power of lightning to her. Suddenly Rumides got scared, screamed, and covered her ears. Everything happening around frightened her a lot. Meanwhile, the boy approached the iron bars and realized that his plan had succeeded. He understood. If he learned to control lightning, he could melt anything at any moment. Soon a heavy hailstorm began, and the angry Layla warned the boy not to try to call lightning in the castle. She said that Sho could destroy the entire building, so he was strictly forbidden to conduct lightning experiments inside the castle. Sho was upset because he did not manage to quickly conduct the magical experiment. Maybe that was why his teacher decided to settle in the forest. He planned to conduct several experiments he had long wanted to try. For this, Sho prepared in advance. He created a plate with a hole that gradually becomes smaller. The boy inserted a copper rod into the plate, which was forged for him in the smithy. Since copper is soft and bends easily, he began pulling the wire through a special hole, gradually reducing its diameter. Sho could not believe that such thin and twisted wire could be made by hand, but that was enough for him. To make the wire softer, it usually needs to be annealed, but he used magic for this. However, another difficulty arose. The wire's insulation had to protect against short circuits. But in this world, vinyl did not exist, so he wrapped it in paper soaked with a mixture of nacua and oil. Sho thought that wrapping paper was better than vinyl, but I myself was not sure if that was really the case. He wrapped thin leather around a sturdy iron rod, then carefully wound copper wire over it. Thanks to this, he ended up with a real object. The number of moves could indeed matter, but in reality, it was still just a test. The next day the boy saw Numi hiding from him behind a column. She looked frightened and quietly asked what that thunder was. Sho assured the girl that he was fine. Since the princess forbade him from conducting experiments in the castle, he had to go to the forest. Numi understood this. She cautiously admitted that, although Sho was kind, she was still a little scared around him. The boy asked the girl if the maid not only took care of the princess, but also protected her, and the girl confirmed that this was indeed the case. And the man gave such an example. What if suddenly lightning strikes, and Numi needs to deliver an important message exactly when bandits attack and use lightning magic? If the girl gets scared and runs away, she might lose her job. This upset Numi a lot because she really did not like such a situation. The girl was confused and did not know how to act next. Then Sho suggested she watch how he conducts experiments with lightning magic so she could get used to it. Numi timidly agreed to his proposal. To stop, they needed to find a spacious place, preferably near the river. Nim called the master Sho, who was walking ahead because she could barely keep up with him. But the boy explained that he became so fast thanks to magic, he cast a spell on himself for slimming. Nim was the only one capable of developing such speed without any magic. The beast folk really amazed with their skill. They had to fix the coil on a wooden pole, raise one end of the copper wire up, and stick the other into the ground to slow its movement. Sho immediately warned the girl not to raise her head. The difference is that ordinary magic can be directed to the desired place, but this magic simply reproduces the forces of nature, which are uncontrollable. You can never guess where it will actually hit. If they were not careful, the magic could strike them, so they needed to keep their distance. Finally, lightning flashed in the sky, and the boys joyfully exclaimed that everything was starting. The lightning struck directly the pre-installed coil, and a loud sound of Nim spread around. Sho joyfully exclaimed because their plan worked. It was so impressive, as if the lightning cut the very edge of reality. Their homemade coil suddenly flared up, and the boy named Numi immediately noticed it. Nim, scared and upset, loudly shouted that the coil was burning, trying to prove to the show host that he also witnessed this accident. The master instantly started running because he realized the situation was dangerous. If a fire suddenly broke out here, it would turn into a real disaster. In this world, there is no way to stop the flames, and then the whole kingdom could burn to ashes. Sho noticed how the flames began to scorch the undergrowth. He paused for a moment and tried to use cold magic, but it was not enough. Then he started feverishly searching for another way to stop the fire. Suddenly he pondered, what if he created a vacuum and cut off the oxygen supply? The coal went out, leaving behind only a thin stream of smoke. Sho sighed with relief and reported that they had been a hair's breadth away from setting the entire forest on fire. Nim confessed sadly that she was still afraid of thunder. The master turned to her and calmly assured her that she would get used to it over time. Although the flame had already gone out, the boy was still not sure whether their experiment had been successful. Sho drew the sword from its sheath, carefully examined the piece of metal that was on the coil, and compared it with his own sword. After a short reflection, he decided to incorporate this metal into his blade. The master rejoiced and said that he had succeeded. It turned out that the part made from the coil had turned into a magnet and was attracted to the steel part of the sword. But this magnet turned out to be quite weak, as if it were made up of many small particles, and soon it completely stopped attracting metal. He realized that it was impossible to create a true permanent magnet from steel, and this saddened him greatly. Sho thought deeply and suddenly understood how magnets could be created, and Nim stood behind, watching him closely and hoping that the boy would be fine, although in her heart she believed that all his efforts were in vain. The master turned around, smiled, and said there was nothing to worry about. The more failures they encountered on their path, the closer they were to true success. Although the magnets did not work, Sho understood that with the help of Magic One could achieve different results if spells were combined correctly. For him, this was already an important victory. Of course, this was not as impressive as magic that needed to be enchanted with words, but this power should not be underestimated, especially at the very beginning. The girl turned to the boy and said that now, since everything had burned down, they could calmly head back to the castle to have lunch. They walked together toward the castle, hoping to finally eat well. Their steps led them to food stalls, where they leisurely passed by various counters. Suddenly, a woman handed Sho Pico, and he politely thanked her. In this world, there is an ordinary compass, and the hero knew that there is a natural stone here necessary for him. However, obtaining this stone will be very difficult, even with the money of the queen herself. If Shaw had cobalt or neodymium, he could create a strong magnet, but he had no idea where to find these metals or how to purify them. Another possibility was alloys of iron and platinum. Once in the past world, Sho was interested in this topic and found out that platinum alloys were previously used in luxury audio equipment to create strong magnets, before neodymium magnets appeared. The boy remembered platinum and thought that in their world gold, silver, and copper were already known. Shu had never heard of platinum, Ed neither, and the boy did not suspect at all that such a metal existed here. If he has magnets and coils, he can assemble a motor, and having a motor, one can make a generator. By connecting the necessary equipment to such a generator, arc welding can currently be performed, unlike welding using lightning. He eagerly awaited this moment, as controlled welding opened up more possibilities and expanded the boundaries of what could be created. Shu just couldn't wait for it to happen. Suddenly someone shouted loudly in the alley, begging not to come closer. Shu could not understand what was happening there and even thought a fight had started. In a narrow alley stood 3 men and 1 girl. They loudly threatened her and said that it was all over for her. The girl irritably began to draw her sword. She was unusual, with 2 ponytails on her head and gloves on her hands. Shu immediately guessed. Before him stood the guard of Her Majesty. 3 men began to insult the girl rudely, and Sho, watching this, could not understand how they were even capable of treating her that way. One of the hooligans said that if she had said nothing, everything would have ended peacefully and no one would have been hurt. Shu decided that it was about Mizuki, or her bodyguard, a guy who was confused and did not know how to act. The man in the raincoat fiercely wished for the girl to disappear. He insulted her, calling her a royal servant. The girl remained silent, only gripping the hilt of her sword even tighter. A few weeks ago, the queen addressed Mizuki and officially introduced her on the show as the creator of new carriages. During the event, Mizuki met a traveling young man and shared with him her impressions of trips in her own carriages. The girl replied that it was wonderful. She admitted that usually after traveling by carriage, she feels very tired, but this one was so comfortable that she even wanted to doze off in it. Mizuki was convinced that everyone would dream of such a carriage, but Shaw noted that it had one drawback. The carriage still bounced on bumps and uneven roads. He dreamed of making wheels from a softer material, but could not find it. After all, he intended to create a carriage that could move without a horse. When the queen heard about this, she was genuinely surprised by such an idea. Her Majesty laughed and said that this is exactly what the work of a true master looks like. She added that if they can make such a model, they can also sell it and make money from it. Shu was a bit embarrassed but still agreed with this. Mizuki paused for a few seconds and glanced at Her Majesty and the show host, noticing how well they found common ground. The queen laughed cheerfully and confidently said that she was not mistaken, for he was indeed her best specialist. Shu decided to contact Ms. Mizuki because they had accumulated work-related issues. He also assumed that she would want to share her impressions of the trip. The girl quickly agreed to the conversation. They walked down the endless corridor. The boy guessed that she was from a mighty empire adorned with precious stones. The girl confirmed this and immediately began sharing her story. The Great Kamyava Empire is a powerful state located to the east of the distant strip. If the distant strip is considered the west, then the empire is located precisely to the east. The Shah himself could not explain why he left his homeland. Mizuki was also confused and did not know how to ask without offending him. Realizing he had been rude, the boy apologized to her, as they had just met. Mizuki calmed him down, saying that it was not their first time meeting. She said she had accompanied Her Majesty during the journey to Rubia. Shu heard this and was genuinely surprised. He became very embarrassed, his cheeks turned pink, and his eyes darted with excitement. After a brief pause, he cautiously addressed Mrs. Mizuki, hoping she wouldn't mind if he took a closer look at the sword on her belt, which looked very unusual, so the boy looked at it with curiosity. Mizuki replied that of course he could take a look, but noted, "This is not some special or sacred sword, but an ordinary weapon." Now this sword clashed in a duel with another, and Sho opened his mouth in surprise. The girl turned out to be much stronger than her attacker, who was already barely able to hold on. The boy watched them, unable to hide his amazement and still standing with his mouth wide open. He was looking for a way to help her, because even such a skilled swordswoman as Mizuki could not defeat 3 enemies at once. Unexpectedly, the sword flashed in the air with incredible speed. The girl opened her mouth in surprise. She could have been wounded, so drops of blood began to appear on the stone slabs of the street. Sho could no longer calmly watch this scene, so he called a girl by name and warned her that danger was approaching from behind. A glowing ball appeared in the boy's hand, which quickly spun and blinded 3 men who hurried to cover their eyes with their hands, trying to hide from the bright light. Sho stood opposite, angry and illuminated by bright light. Finally, Mizuki noticed him too, but along with her, the men also paid attention to him and remembered that he was a scientist. The bearded man shouted to his people that it was time to run. Shu and Mizuki silently watched as they disappeared into the distance. The boy broke out in a cold sweat. He was lucky to deceive them thanks to the magic of compressed air, but in a real fight, it would hardly be possible to hold the defense. After spending some time in thought, he came to his senses and immediately sat next to Mrs. Mizuka to make sure she was all right. The girl had a wounded shoulder, and she was pressing it with her hand to stop the bleeding. Shu loudly noticed that she was bleeding. He realized that he had to stop the bleeding as soon as possible. They pressed against the wall, and Shaw carefully bandaged her wound, placing a twig under the dressing. He took care of the first aid. The boy picked up Mizuki in his arms and exclaimed that they urgently needed to return to the castle, as the master probably possessed healing magic. Eventually, they reached the master's house. Mizuki was lying on the mattress, looking weak and sick, but the doctor refused to examine her. Sho could not understand what was happening and began begging Stella for help, since the master had already gone to look for plants, and only she could be approached. Trudy angrily replied that she was not a doctor and should not become one. The boy could not imagine how to find the right words for Stella, so he simply begged her to support Mizuki. He said that if they did not try at least something, Mizuki might just disappear. Sho mauled Stella, tears were already appearing in his eyes. Stella looked at him silently, then calmly expressed her conditions. If he agreed to spend the night with her, then she would still think about it. He agreed and assured that he would do everything they needed from him. Stella thought he just wanted to please her, believing that would be enough, but she felt her feminine pride would not allow her to accept such concessions. The Sho apologized and was ready to accept any punishment, but Stella only smiled in response and approached Mizuki, who was lying wounded. Sitting beside her, Stella began to recite a spell to heal the girl and restore her strength. Mizuki's wound began to heal instantly and soon disappeared completely. When the girl regained consciousness, she apologized to Lady Stella for the inconvenience caused and explained that the bleeding had stopped, but if she moved abruptly, the blood might start flowing again. When Stella was leaving, she said she didn't care what would happen to the inhabitants of the Empire. Mizuki was noticeably upset by this and wanted to say something to stop Stella, while Sho wondered why this girl hated them all so much and if there was any reason for it. Shu sincerely hoped that everything would be fine with her. The girl nodded and thanked him for the rescue, as he was the one who saved her life. The boy assured that he had done nothing special. He just wanted to make it clear, if she encountered difficulties, he would always support her. Mizuki was silent for a moment, then quietly said that he was truly a good person. Shu cleaned the apple, and for the first time wondered how Stella's healing magic works. As soon as she began to speak the spell, the wound immediately healed. He was so confused that he didn't even notice how he was peeling the apple and accidentally cut his finger. He yelped in pain, and only then remembered that he could try to heal the wound with his magic. Sho carefully touched the wounded finger with his tongue and pondered. The human body consists of many chemical processes, so one could use magic that accelerates these reactions, or try growth magic, as is usually done with plants. Monsters rarely decide to attack. However, in any world, the hardest thing is to bring a person back to life. Especially in a world where any scoundrels can attack you, Shu would like at least to master the simplest attack and healing spells to be able to stand up for himself. The boy took his finger out of his mouth, brought the knife to himself, and ran it over his wound once again. And suddenly drops of blood began to fall on the table where he had just been carefully peeling apples. From the outside, it may seem that he is not of sound mind, but perhaps he is driven by the true spirit of science. After all, this magic is meant to accelerate growth, which means it will make the skin heal faster to cure the wound. The boy looked at his finger and anger seized him. He realized that this time it was serious. The wound had deepened and the blood flowed even stronger. Next, he tried to use magic to speed up his reaction, thinking that skin healing was just a chain of chemical reactions in the cells. However, this approach also did not work. So everything turned out to be much more complicated than he initially imagined. Then he decided to use double activation magic. He immediately accelerated growth and improved reaction. Thanks to this, the wound gradually began to heal. To use magic twice simultaneously, one must be very focused. It's like talking to several people at once and listening carefully to each one. No matter how hard he tried to stop the bleeding, the blood still flowed from the wound. This began to irritate him, so he turned to magic again. Sweat appeared on his face from the tension. Finally, the wound completely healed, leaving only a small mark and a drop of blood where there had recently been a large wound. Shu joyfully exclaimed that he succeeded. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled loudly. Only now did he notice that he had been so absorbed in thought that he even forgot to breathe, but eventually he did inhale. Shu can only use mind magic, but if he continues to delve deeper into everything, his magical abilities will become much more powerful. If you think about it, spell magic works like a program that launches several spells simultaneously and successfully combines them. He did not understand why at some point this process stops working. For example, if you apply magic to meat, it will not turn back into a cow, it will not appear anymore, it will not become fertilizer, and it will not start to rot. Magic can only close wounds, but nothing more. It seems to give life energy in advance and accelerates the healing process. Shu was convinced that the body would no longer recover because it lacked the life energy that could be transferred. He carefully looked at the body charred to freshness. This means that as soon as the heart stops beating, the blood no longer moves and oxygen does not reach the organs. And when the cell runs out of energy, it can no longer recover. Animals cannot recover quickly, but plants are very persistent. Even if you crush them into pieces, they still grow back. Even vegetables sometimes sprout from fruits that have been left in the refrigerator for a long time. The boy had already finished his steak and realized that certain plants are grown through cloning so that they always remain equally high quality. Suddenly, he sharply stood up from the chair and placed his hands on the table. After that, the man went to his greenhouse, where he carefully looked at his flowers. His gaze stopped on one flower. It was a delicate vanilla orchid. Sho received seedlings from the master and grew vanilla beans from them. He learned that orchids are often propagated by cloning, so he decided to try. If he could accelerate the regeneration of plant tissues using magic, then maybe he could also clone orchids. The boy realized that he needed to act. He took a leaf and began cutting it into small pieces. Cut the leaf and place it in a sterile cup of water. Activate magic so that the leaf tissues begin to multiply. Arrange the leaves in the water so that there is an equal distance between them. Over time, the cells of the grown leaves may turn into a white mass. Young shoots began to sprout from the leaf. Suddenly, a fresh, large leaf grew from them. The boy joyfully exclaimed that the plant had renewed itself. Now he had the opportunity to clone and propagate any valuable plants. He could get as many vanilla beans as he wanted, and at that moment, like a true cunning genius, he burst into loud laughter. He laughed so loudly and for so long that eventually he fainted right on the spot. It seemed that he had overdone it with the use of magic. After some time, he was again sitting in his house, carefully examining some detail. Suddenly someone addressed him, and it was exactly her. He turned around, surprised by her appearance, as he did not expect to meet her here at all. The girl noticed that he was again creating something unusual. Sho looked at her and said that he was just thinking about all sorts of little things. He thought that something good had happened. Nim once again asked Mr. Shaw to come to Onion Koppen, but he could not figure out which exact Koppen was meant. The girl said that it was very fluffy here, fun, and there was also a pleasant aroma in the air. Sean and Nim were walking along a narrow street of their town. There was almost no one around, only occasionally passers-by were met. The boy decided to return to her, trying to understand her words. What she was talking about was soft, fluffy, and had a pleasant, tasty smell. Nim said that her mother had opened her own shop. The man was surprised to hear this and decided to ask again to learn more about this woman. They approached the house and Nim pointed to it, explaining that there was a store here, the famous Beast snack bar on Cognan Kapan. Suddenly, a loud bell rang at the door. New guests had arrived. Quite a few people had already gathered in the cafe, chatting lively and enjoying drinks. Nim explained that all the guests here were beast folk and expressed hope that this would not cause extra difficulties for Shaw, who did not belong to this species. At that moment, the girl greeted Mr. Shaw warmly and assured him that everyone was glad of his presence. Nim's mother, named Ninny, was happy about his arrival. She said she had heard many good things about him and considered him a famous scientist. She introduced herself as his mother, and the boy said his name was Shaw. He added that he was still studying under a master because he had not yet received his certificate. The boy learned that to become a true master and have an official certificate, one needed to enter the Imperial University. However, this did not worry him much, as he knew. It did not matter whether he got the diploma or not, he would continue his work. The visitors of the snack bar noticed that a famous master was sitting next to them. The boy heard their exclamations, but did not understand whether they were joking or really paying such attention to him. Nini served a plate of food, noting that it was the signature meatball soup, which they were especially proud of here. The boy quickly scooped a spoonful, tasted it, and enthusiastically praised, "The dish is tasty, and the broth is simply wonderful." The girl explained that the fish for the broth is stewed whole, without removing it from the pot, and spices are added to eliminate the smell. Thanks to this, the meat acquires a deep and rich flavor. Nim told how she shared with her mother the story about the soup that the show's chef prepared especially for them. The man immediately understood that the soup was made to suit the animal's taste. She laughed and admitted that the soup turned out very tasty. Someone lightly touched the boy's shoulder and addressed Mr. Show. Suddenly, many girls with cat ears appeared around him, and he was completely confused, not understanding what was happening. Show was sure that they were just like him. One of the girls confirmed his guess. Another admitted that she wanted to get closer to the show's host. Show thought that maybe the girls liked scientists. But inside, he felt that it was not quite so. The blonde with cat ears said that among the locals there were rumors. The owner of the show was actually a demon. The boy did not understand how that could have happened. The girls explained that the host was a true master, and it was he who invented the special spider chocolate. Show remembered that chocolate with the spider. After one incident, this product began to be secretly produced and sold, passing it off as a health supplement or tonic, especially during illness or after it. However, the merchant whispered about other properties as well. For example, one of them claimed that this remedy actually helps in another way, and all the girls will definitely pay attention to you. It seems this product sells very well thanks to such frank advertising. People leave enthusiastic reviews. The cat girl said that Nim heard that the show's host was friendly. The show's craftswoman also invented a pump that she uses daily, and now it has become much more convenient for her. The man was glad to hear these words. He shared that he once served his master and remembered how hard it was to draw water from the well every day. The girl kept repeating these words but still did not understand why water was flowing from the pump. Her friend agreed with her and also noted that it looked quite strange. The girl dared to turn to the show host to find out if he would surprise her with something else unusual. Then Nim cut off the conversation and announced that the host of the show dreams of making a carriage without horses, but they are still secretly working on this plan. The girls could not figure out how this carriage moved without a horse. They decided that it was probably some kind of magic. The boy replied that it was not magic, but ordinary logic. The girl was momentarily confused, but the boy immediately confirmed his words. He decided to explain everything with an example and told how he created a toy during the performance. The cat girls did not recognize this thing, but the show asked him to demonstrate it. It was a toy car with a special wheel that could bounce back. Inside it, kinetic energy accumulated, so when you release the car, it keeps rolling by itself for a long time. This machine gathers energy in its hands, but in reality there is a motor or something similar there. It has only 2 wheels, not 4 like ordinary cars. I became curious about how it would move, then he let it run on the floor. He let go of the hand and explained that that's how it moves. His invention rolled across the floor and immediately caught the girls' attention. The kittens immediately started fussing around the typewriter, which greatly embarrassed the boy. They began overturning everything, running around the room and jumping under the tables, trying to catch that very machine. Sho approached the girls, trying to calm them down. After that, Nini went out into the corridor, as she could not understand what was happening. The cat sat in discomfort for a while and said that their bodies move on their own. Nini replied that this is exactly why they can't succeed. Shu still didn't understand what she was talking about. She explained that they would not be able to work well if they were constantly distracted by other people. If a rat suddenly appeared during work and caught their attention, they could easily get hurt at that moment. Sho suddenly remembered something and added that Nim actually did not attack him, but only lightly wagged her tail. Nini said that all this became possible thanks to her persistent training, and she was very proud of herself. Later they walked together among the shops. Sho wondered whether to buy some more spices. They stopped near one cellar, and Sho noticed that there was quite an interesting assortment here. The shopkeeper addressed the buyer. "I thought he was a real connoisseur, so I wanted to make sure of it myself. Besides, he said he had some rare ores." Then he handed him a stone with the words that although this stone looked quite ordinary, Sho also considered it nothing special. But this is not quite so. When brought very close to the blade, the ore immediately stuck to the sword. Sho noticed this natural magnet and became interested, as it was so rare that it was not even worth 1 gold coin. Hearing this, he immediately declared that he would buy it. The seller was surprised by such a quick decision and asked to wait a little because he could not believe that they were really ready to make a purchase. Sho thought that in fact it was not for sale since he chose exactly it. The seller apologized because it seemed incredible to him that someone would want to spend so much money on this, but the man calmly replied that then he would simply choose another product. Among various things, the boy noticed dried slime and pointed at it with his finger. On the nearby sign it was written that this was an overseas delicacy. Nim was surprised by such a choice, but the boy was already paying for the purchase. The boys were already in the show workshop when Nim approached the master. She addressed him because it was here that she bought many things. Meanwhile, the boy who was unpacking the bag looked at Nim with surprise. He remembered that he intended to cook something, and when everything was ready, he suggested making something tasty. The girl gladly agreed. On the table lay many small parts resembling gears. The man looked around and saw that Nim was already sleeping peacefully on the bed. Then he returned to his work. Finally, the boy loudly announced that he had prepared everything. He took out a hand mixer to whip the necessary ingredients. He works like a wind-up toy car. You need to turn the handle to get the flywheel spinning, and then its inertia moves the whisk even when you stop turning it by hand. Nim woke up and at first did not understand what was happening. Sho noticed that she was no longer asleep and explained that he was now whipping egg whites to make meringue. The word meringue was unfamiliar to Nim, and she had no idea what it was. The girl was amazed at how quickly it became so soft and fluffy. It was snow white, light, and looked appetizing. The boy also suggested trying to make it fluffy. On the table stood cream obtained after separating milk with a centrifuge. They could be easily whipped with a hand mixer. The girl asked the show host what this slime was, as she did not understand why it was poisonous. The man explained that only the organs are poisonous, and the transparent part is safe. It resembled a jellyfish. If you immerse it in hot water again and then let it cool, it will harden again and become like jelly. When you mix meringue with slime that has returned to its original form, add some whipped cream, syrup, and vanilla pods, the semi-frozen slime becomes similar to the natto dessert. This is exactly the ingredient they also wanted to use to make the flavor special. Pour the mixture into a bowl, wait until it cools completely, and the slime mousse from Another World by Natto is ready. Today's snack turned out great. Suddenly, Stella and Rubia entered the room. The healer asked Shaw to bring her some sweets. The man immediately informed that everything was almost ready, so the order could be picked up. He suspected that these visitors had mistaken this place for an ordinary coffee shop. 3 girls, without hesitation, tried the new dish, although they had no idea what kind of food it was. It was a cool and tasty treat. The cake had a fluffy and tender center, and on top was a crispy crust, a real delight. Sho said that this dessert is called mousse, but when asked about the main ingredient, he suddenly became shy and fell silent. Then the boy admitted that the main ingredient was slime. The girls were surprised by such a secret of the recipe and were not sure if it was the same slime they imagined. The boy himself admitted that he had never seen this ingredient with his own eyes. Stella said that she was offered this dish because it is considered a delicacy, but she did not like the taste very much, and Shaw replied that he was glad the food still pleased her. Rubio was so shocked that she froze in place. Stella noticed that it looked like a negative reaction. It seemed as if the girl wasn't even breathing, although there was still mousse left in her spoon. Stella noticed that Rubia is somewhat biased against food and therefore has a certain prejudice. Sho awkwardly smiled at this and agreed that it was true. When she encounters a rare fish, an unusual vegetable, or a strange dish, one question always arises in her mind: can this be tasted? But Shaw dreamed that they would take example from the Japanese, who are not afraid to try different food. Stella could not recognize what this smell was, as it was not at all like the scent of slime. She guessed that it probably smelled like a vanilla pod, but the boy assured her that it was actually the scent of an orchid. The girl recalled that this thing usually made rooms smell. Then Shaw immediately turned to Mrs. Stella with the idea of making perfume from it. Mrs. Stella asked him about it in surprise. He advised dissolving the perfume in special alcohol and then pouring it into a small bottle. This way they can enjoy their favorite scent at any time. Stella immediately hugged him and wanted to kiss him, but suddenly Rubelia woke up. She looked at Shaw and it surprised him. Shaw turned to her, happy that she was alive. She tried to object but still agreed. If he made perfume for her, she would forgive him. The next day, screams came from the workshop. Someone was yelling at him because he performed poorly in the play. Someone even called him terrible. The man immediately guessed that it was about Stella's perfume. He knew she really liked them. The evil queen confirmed this, but Shaw immediately assured He had already taken care to create the same scents personally for Her Highness. The girl brought a strand of her hair to her nose, hoping he would notice its sweet and pleasant scent. He indeed sensed the smell, and with a smile remarked that the hair smelled nice, addressing her as Your Majesty. She suggested he just call her Leela. The boy was a bit confused, saying it was hard for him to call her by her name right away. Feeling the gazes of those around them, the girl immediately understood everything and puffed out her cheeks, either out of embarrassment or offense. Sho well understood what feelings Leela was experiencing, because he himself often felt like a stranger among people. Especially, he became embarrassed when they called him a master or a true master. Therefore, when they were together, he simply called her Lila. He just wanted to make sure everything fit. Layla said without hesitation that everything was fine and immediately agreed. Shu remembered something and turned back to Layla again. She did not understand what he meant. The boy asked about those chocolates. He was curious if they were in demand. The girl replied that yes, they were gladly bought. They were really popular. At the market, one spider chocolate bar is sold for 2 gold coins, and everyone says that they are immediately bought up by great merchants, kings, and noble people. Although it is not discussed aloud, it is rumored that some disappeared after overeating these chocolates. The boy timidly asked again. He was still tormented by doubts. Was everything really as Leela assured, and did he really have nothing to worry about? All the old men and pigs from the list of those he sought to destroy had long since ended up in hell. Maybe that was exactly why he did everything. Shu nodded confusedly. He didn't think it would really affect him that much. Leela called him cute, hugged him joyfully, and laughed sincerely. The boy thought that she looked cute, yet was not averse to dirty work. Her political talent was impressive, and Sho could not calm his excitement. Sho had spent several months in this new world, and during that time managed to learn a lot of interesting things. He found out that the local civilization has existed in an unchanged state for more than 1,000 years. If you imagine that the development of civilization in this world is now similar to the Edo period, then it is quite likely that in a little more than 100 years, they could reach the same level as modern Japan. One of the reasons for this might be magic. When people often use convenient magic, the development of science slows down. It is strange that they do not even have ordinary matches for lighting fires, let alone electricity. Some magical stones that can absorb magic flare up when struck. However, they are very expensive, so ordinary people who cannot use magic find it hard to light even a candle. Sho remembered that he recently bought a natural magnet from a traveler and decided to try making a simple generator. In his native world, such a generator would be enough to light a lamp, but it turned out to be insufficient for charging a phone. The boy thought about creating a light bulb. He knew that glass exists in this world, but it was not transparent enough for his idea due to many impurities, so he realized that he would have to make the necessary glass himself. Sho set out to find the required materials. Quartz is needed to make glass, and this material can be found in large quantities on riverbanks. The ordinary glass I am used to in my world will be difficult to make here because the necessary chemicals are almost impossible to find. He believes that ash from trees was used to make some old crystal glasses. He also learned about lead. Sho read that the more lead contained in glass, the more transparent it becomes. He assumed that a scintillator for a powerful detector could be made from glass. And if leaded glass was needed, he knew it could be found in the castle's materials department. In his house, Shaw worked intensely. He sat at the table and crafted a crucible for melting glass, carefully cutting it out of a large piece of quartz. Now he needed to get ash. He had to prepare quite a lot of firewood to melt everything to the required density in a large cauldron filled with magically heated water. First, we need to take the liquid with sediment and then accelerate the chemical reaction using magic. As a result, a white powder will appear. This will be potassium. But what potash was it about? In fact, the name no longer mattered. First, the quartz should be crushed, then it will dissolve more easily. He replaced the traditional pestle and mortar with metal ones so that the grain could be crushed faster and automatically using a water wheel. During work, he noticed that with the help of magic, quartz can be heated and cooled several times. This allows it to be easily broken into small fragments. He realized once again, magic is capable of much more if used correctly. It can make any task much easier and faster. First, you need to put quartz, the shell, and lead into the crucible, and then place the crucible into the furnace. At first, the lead would melt, since it melts at a low temperature, but the quartz would remain intact because melting it requires much more heat than an ordinary forge can provide. So he used magic to enhance the heating. If you make the molecules move faster, the temperature rises. Quartz slowly melts, glowing with a bright orange light. When it finally melts, it is carefully poured onto a steel plate. To fix the situation, you need to compress and stretch the object with the power of magic that increases its weight. Such magic helps to correct defects that arise when using magic to reduce weight. Later, everything cooled down. Suddenly, the man became worried and noticed that something strange remained from the lead. Shu realized the lead did not melt completely. After several attempts, he finally understood everything. He realized that lead turns yellow when sufficiently heated and melted. Therefore, first you need to heat only the first part. They select only those pieces that have turned yellow. Shu tried once again to repeat his trick. He carefully tilted the glass and began pouring out the liquid that had already collected there. The boy carefully recalled what had happened and finally smiled. He succeeded, and now there was a clean glass in front of him. This material has some impurities, and the surface is not completely smooth, but it is quite suitable. The boy decided that such glass would be good, for example, for windows or simple dishes. Usually glass cools quickly and becomes hard, so it must be shaped very quickly. But with magic, he will be able to maintain the required temperature as long as needed. Glass can be used for many things, so having a separate furnace would be very convenient. He became interested in creating something unusual. He remembered that he would need a light bulb next, so he decided to try glass blowing. For glass blowing, he used a mixture of iron, bamboo, and castor oil. He placed the glass blank in the furnace, then carefully twisted the bamboo tube and began blowing air inside. For several days, Shu worked on making glass. The light bulb, which he had not yet finished, began to melt, and then he realized that it was more difficult than it seemed. Shu tried to understand how to properly blow glass, thinking that it all came down to simple calculations, addition and subtraction. The boy took the tube and started blowing again, striving to make the light bulb. Meanwhile, the sun had already set beyond the horizon. For several days in a row, he worked with molten glass. Stella and Rubia watched his work, but could not guess what he was making. Stella looked into the mirror and was surprised. An elf was looking back at her. Meanwhile, Rubia turned to the stage, not fully understanding the purpose of those boards, and noticed glasses that looked like an invisible shield. Shu turned the corner and noticed that Mr. and Mrs. Stella were standing in front of him. He immediately began telling them that he had slightly improved the glass. He also explained that it was an ordinary glass mirror in which they could clearly see their reflections. Stella was so shocked and surprised that she could hardly believe she was seeing herself in the mirror. Shu noted that they arrived very on time, as he had an important conversation he wanted to have specifically with them. The boy stretched out the coiled wire and was ready to explain that it was copper, but Rubia had already understood everything anyway. He confirmed this and decided to cover it with a thin film. Earlier, he had already tried to use paper for this, but it turned out to be too thick. Rubia thought that nakava would come in handy, since if you bend it, it easily separates. Then Stella guessed that it was probably worth trying to use the wax produced by insects. Shu asked again, and Rubia felt the moment had come. She told him to get ready because they were heading into the forest after him. The boy couldn't believe it was happening right now. But this man already suspected everything, for he, like the master, was a true scientist. Ruby reminded that they should hurry. The insect wax turned out to be the same as in his former world. When the copper wire was passed through the melted wax, a quality coating appeared on it. Thanks to the master and Mrs. Stella, he already had a good coil of wire ready for work. The whole matter was precisely in the thread. He could not find tungsten, which is usually used for this. Therefore, very finely cut bamboo, treated with steam, was used for the thread. In the first incandescent lamps, which were also called Edison lamps, the filament inside was made of bamboo. Stella decided that it was a magical vacuum cleaner. The boy agreed with her, and the girl asked with interest what he was doing. The boy said that this is a real lamp. The girls were surprised and could not believe it. Then he explained that copper wire is wound around the lamp. This is the coil. If you insert or remove a magnet inside the coil, the lamp starts to glow. He brought the magnet close to the coil, and the light bulb immediately lit up. Everything happened exactly as he said. Rubio was amazed to see that the light bulb really glowed, and Stella could not understand why this was happening. The boy explained that when a magnet moves inside a coil, a force appears that resembles electricity, and the light bulb lights up. Rubia understood that this was not magic. The boy confirmed her guess and added that anyone can use this science. If you connect this device to a water wheel or windmill and create a mechanism that works without stopping, the lamps can shine even brighter. But Stella noticed that there is one problem here. It is very unusual when darkness suddenly disperses and everything around becomes bright, as if in broad daylight. Shu blushed, turned away, and asked Miss Stella not to put him in such an awkward situation. When he tried to get rid of the persistent girl's attention, he accidentally touched the magnets on the board, and they fell to the floor. Pentagon-shaped stones suddenly fell onto the tablet with the lamp. Shu could not believe his eyes. The light bulb was glowing, although there was not a single magnet on the coil. He noticed, as soon as the magic stone was brought close to the spiral, the light bulb immediately lit up. It turned out that electromagnetic induction was occurring in this stone. The show was delighted by what he saw and fully enjoyed the uniqueness of this world. Rubia was enchanted watching how beautifully the light bulb glowed. Stella remembered that this energy was similar to the one that shocks. Shu shared what she had heard. Magical stones can absorb magical power and then give it back. But it never even occurred to him that this magical stone was capable of generating electricity. To generate current, the magnet must be constantly moved inside the coil, while the magic stone can create a magnetic field only by being nearby. The show approached the master, expressing the opinion that magical stones might lose their power over time due to constant use, but the craftswoman responded with surprise that she had never encountered such a phenomenon. He could not believe that it was really true. This is absolutely pure and infinite energy, and if in his world someone managed to discover something like this, he would definitely receive the Nobel Prize. The Shah had already turned towards the castle and was talking with Layla about the new device he was working on. The queen was genuinely happy about his arrival and asked with interest what exactly he had invented this time. But the man remained serious and addressed the girl, saying, "Your Majesty, he can be sold." Now they went down to the basement, and Layla had no idea why they were brought there. Sho asked her to hold the thing as tightly as possible. The girl looked at the unknown object in her hands and could not understand what it was. Then Sho explained that they would now insert a magic stone into it. The girl was holding something like a lantern, and the light from it flooded part of the basement. She thought it was very cool, although she suspected that magic was involved. Sho began to deny everything, explaining that it was just a clever trick based on logic. A polished copper plate is inserted into the bamboo tube, and a tin reflector is fixed at its end. Inside, a coil is installed, which is connected to a light bulb. If a magic stone is placed in such a tube, electricity appears in the system. The girl raised the flashlight to her face and happily said that now she no longer needed to worry about lighting a candle. Shu supported her and noted that such a lamp would come in handy if Layla wanted to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. The queen immediately announced that this product would be put up for sale and needed to be launched into mass production as soon as possible. The boy gladly agreed to take care of it, but noted that he would need something first. The girl eagerly awaited what exactly he would ask for. To create this light part, he will need crystal glass and magic to create a vacuum, and making the glass requires a lot of fuel. He will definitely find a way to organize mass production, but it will take some time, so you will have to wait. The girl, with a smile and sparkle in her eyes, joyfully said that she is giving this to him. Sho was walking down the city street when a woman greeted him and called him Mr. Scientist. In response, he smiled and remarked that today is a beautiful day. On the way, he came across a man who immediately guessed that the hero was a master because he was buying various things. He confirmed his skills, and then the man noted that it was here one could find the newest and best swords. The man looked at his sword and said he forged it himself. For this, he used pieces of metal he recently bought. The man assured he was a master blacksmith, but admitted not everything was within his power. Such real swords, he said, could only be forged by dwarves. The merchant gratefully asked Shaw to visit him from time to time if he had the chance. Hearing this, Shaw smiled and promised to definitely return. He also really liked the clear and warm weather. The boy stretched, then set off down the street. He passed several alleys, silently continuing his way, but soon he was overcome by a restless feeling that gave him no peace. He looked around confusedly, feeling someone's invisible presence. Suddenly it dawned on him, they were watching him. His heart began to beat faster, and he mentally prayed that it was not the same bandits who wanted to take revenge for past events. His mind was in turmoil, and he could not decide what to do next. Sho realized that the same guys who had previously attacked Mizuki were following him. He understood that they most likely would not be able to catch him by surprise, as he knows an old, proven way to shake off pursuers. The man ran forward at full speed and soon disappeared around the corner of the house. There he stopped to see if his pursuer would appear and if he would really show himself. But suddenly the girl tripped over his legs and hit her back hard on the ground. Shu was surprised to see that a small child was standing in front of him. They silently looked at each other. Tears appeared in the girl's eyes, and she began to cry loudly. The boy got scared and started begging her to calm down, justifying that he had done nothing wrong because he noticed how the people around were looking at them. Sho nervously felt his pockets and finally took out a candy, which he handed to the girl. He promised to give her something tasty. The girl noticed that Maria always taught not to take anything from strangers. He thought that in his world, in such a situation, he would immediately call the police. Sho decided that the girl would not recognize him since he works as the chief scientist in the castle, but she said she knows him as the show host. Then Sho finally sighed with relief. Now he was sure that she really knows him. If she knows who he is, then he is not a stranger to her. He always treats his friends to something sweet. The girl thought for a moment, her eyes suddenly lit up, and she reached out for the candy. She really liked the candy, and the boy said he made it himself from fruit. She always behaves properly, does not take anything that belongs to others. After all, she is very afraid that she might be kidnapped and sold somewhere. Maria warned her about this. But suddenly a thought sounded behind her. Someone suspected that she was hiding something. Then one boy warned her not to take things from strangers. The girl immediately stated that he was a showmaster, a true expert in his field, and she personally knew him. Therefore, she could take things from him. At the same time, someone from the crowd remarked that it was unfair. The boy with cat ears admitted that he also knows this man. He called him old and added that he might fool his sister, but not him. The show found this very amusing. He thought it was very cute. Since she works in the castle, Shaw was surprised that a beastman also works there. Later, he realized that these conversations were about him and that this beastman is Nim's brother. Therefore, the girl's brother asked not to be seen only as a cat. He wanted to tell me how she was proud of her brother and boasted about it, but he asked again not to call him sweet. After all, he dreams of becoming the head of the family in the future, earning a lot and making life easier for his mother and sister. Sho was standing under the shower and suddenly cried. He thought it was something extraordinary, and he dreamed that he would also get some tasty treat for it. Other children immediately said that they help Maria every day, and the boy agreed and promised to give each one. He was curious whether these creatures really hunt people and how close they could sneak up to them. It is good that this person turned out to be him. It could have been his master, or even worse, their elf. He wanted to check if the children were familiar with his master. To this, they together said only, "She is a witch." Then I asked about the elf, and the children again answered in unison, "She is a destroyer." The boy said that this really concerned this particular elf. She is dangerous, and no one can guess what she is thinking. One of the boys assured that if the master took on the task, his show would become a real magical experiment, and the girl added that then he could quite possibly turn into a real monster. Sho laughed and added that, as they say, there is no smoke without fire, so maybe that was really the case. But if they continue such antics, their parents will definitely be upset. The children sat on the cold stone bench and silently looked at each other. It was hard to believe, but they were left completely alone, without a father and without a mother. Sho was surprised by this, but remembered that he had already heard about the shelter in this place. A woman named Maria lived in that house together with about 20 children. Sho said that he did not like their risky games, but he could teach them something else. The children were interested in his words. Sho sat down and began to work on a wooden block, gradually carving a toy helicopter from it. Then he started making various toys for the children. He made stilts, a slingshot, and also rocked them on a homemade swing, always considering what they liked. Sha sincerely believed that all children are wonderful, regardless of who their parents were. He earned a living with interesting and serious scientific work, so he would gladly be able to help the shelter for such children. When he found himself in this world, he did not have a single penny. Now he receives 3 gold coins every month and also earns rewards for his inventions. Thanks to this, he has managed to save about 100 gold coins. It was already dusk when Sho addressed the children and said that it was time to return because it had become late outside. He promised to lead them to the shelter if they showed him the way. The children gladly agreed to his offer. Ahead appeared a 2-story house, and the children joyfully exclaimed that they were already home. They turned to Sister Maria, wishing to inform her of their return, and Maria, without turning to them, simply said, "Welcome home." The girl wanted to fetch water, but suddenly noticed that an unfamiliar man was standing near her children. He smiled and greeted Maria, telling her that he had met her children in the city. The girl unexpectedly let go of the rope from the well, rushed to Sho, hugged him, started crying and said, "Mr. Zero." The boy could not believe what the girl had done. He was impressed by her action. He realized that he was not an ordinary person. Then the children approached Maria's sister and explained that everything had been arranged, and the boy himself was actually a true sage. The girl silently looked at him, her cheeks flushed with a blush. She suddenly realized that she had mistaken Sho for another person, so she immediately apologized. But Sho smiled gently and assured her that nothing terrible had happened. He wanted to make sure that it was really Maria. She, a little embarrassed, confirmed it. A girl ran up to Maria and told her that Mr. Sho had made many toys for them. The girl explained that she appreciated his care for the children, but was worried that she would not be able to thank him properly, so she asked him to visit more often. Now Sho was sitting at the same table with everyone and sincerely apologized for having eaten them. Maria smiled and noted that the children were happy about his presence, then suggested that everyone put their hands together. After that, she unexpectedly said, "Itadakimasu." The children together imitated every movement of their teacher. Sho could not understand what exactly they were doing and what they were talking about. Maria explained that itadakimasu is a foreign custom of giving thanks for food, which Zero had learned. The boy said nothing and told them to wait, thinking that Zero might also be Japanese, like him. Meanwhile, the girl addressed Mr. Sho. She deeply regretted having made hasty conclusions. The girl was no longer sure that he was worthless. Sho was confused. It seemed to him that they had something in common, but Maria objected. Not at all, he was much braver. Maria noted that he no longer looked the same on the outside, but the same energy was felt in him. Zero said that when they meet again, he would be different still. Sho still could not understand who Zero really was. The girl said that this man saved her life when she was dying from a severe cough. It was a lung disease, tuberculosis. He also healed her eye, which had been blind since childhood. Sho didn't even imagine that this was possible, but he still couldn't understand who this mysterious null was. So he started asking me about the girl and asked if this null was really a scholar mage because he has incredible abilities. Sho wanted me to tell him more about this person. The girl immediately agreed and said that it was back when she turned 12. Maria was born blind, and her relatives turned away from her. Then the girl had to start working in the Imperial Pavilion of the Night Sky. But she caught the disease from a guest who visited them and also fell ill. She was driven out of the Night Sky Pavilion, so she began wandering the streets, and the girl noticed that she was gradually disappearing. Once she found herself in the darkness, sitting next to a large tree, and I thought that this place would become her last refuge, where she would say goodbye to life. Before her appeared someone's silhouette, and from behind it came a voice asking if she wanted to survive. The girl decided that it was God himself before her, and, as if illuminated by bright light, answered with agreement. She accepted his proposal. The next morning, when she woke up, the cough was completely gone. When her gaze cleared, Shaw seemed to her like God himself had descended. The girl agreed, but set one condition. She said that Master Zero said, "In this world, God does not really exist, and if someone believes in his existence, then it is either an unknown being with extraordinary knowledge and technologies, or someone who is simply deceiving people." The man replied that he agreed with this, but he was interested in what happened next. Zero advised her to stay with the teacher in this shelter. Since then, she lived near Master Zero and other children. Their days passed in joy and peace, and they shared many happy moments together. One day, Master Null informed her that he was setting off back to a distant foreign country. When she ran after him in tears, Master Zero assured her that Maria was taking care of their connection. If it was true love, she would definitely meet him again. The Shah was surprised, but Maria did not stop and added that Zero explained, "This is a special connection that unites their souls and determines their fate." That guy understood. Zero was probably Japanese, and besides him, someone else appeared in this world besides Blaha. She believed that one day she would see Master Zero again, and decided to cherish their relationship when that moment came. The girl said that their teacher died 2 years ago. She sincerely hoped that at least this time he would leave some memory or connection for these children. Shu was silent for a while, then looked at Maria and said that he was not the one called Zero, but he promised to do everything in his power. The boys set about installing a water supply for them so that water would flow directly into the house. He gave the children water guns, and Maria received a brand new flashlight that had just been invented. The girls sitting at the table were surprised and even a little shocked. Shu handed the girl coins. She, with tears in her eyes, thanked him for his kindness and confessed that she did not know how she could repay Mr. Shu. Through Russell, he invited a carpenter to fix the work done earlier. He was surprised when he received 80 gold coins for his work, but for the hero, the main thing is his own safety. Suddenly, someone bumped into Shu, and he fell to the ground. The boy's face was almost near her chest, and he began to examine them. These breasts were even bigger than the mistress's. The girl reproachfully said that he was rude. The boy tried to explain something and asked for a little time, but the unfamiliar woman did not understand what he was referring to. He carefully examined her silver hair, long ears, and dark skin. Sho wondered if he was a dark elf. She again spoke to him with unpleasant words. The girl noticed that the boy did not take his eyes off her, and she did not like it. That was when the show began. She did not understand why he was in such a hurry, and even apologized to her. Nervously, she said she had to rush. The next day, Sho came to the snack bar where Nini worked and greeted her. She smiled and said she was glad to see him. Suddenly, an employee approached the boy and informed him that someone was looking for him. This surprised Sho greatly. The elf woman he was running from stood by the table and looked at him with annoyance. He immediately recalled yesterday, but did not have time to say anything. The girl interrupted him. She quietly apologized, saying she was truly very sorry. The boy was completely confused and did not know how to react. She came here to meet the real master, whom everyone calls the demon. However, the more she heard about him, the clearer she understood that he was the one she had once driven away. Since he often comes here to eat, she decided to wait for him. Sho apologetically excused himself to the girl for staring at her, awkwardly explaining that boys often behave that way. But the girl just shrugged. For her, it was nothing unusual. Then she smiled and gave her name, Feifei, and after that addressed him once again as the real master. Suddenly, the girl firmly grabbed the boy's hand. She begged him to help because she sincerely believed that he was the one who could save her native village. The boy looked at her confused, not understanding anything. He learned that a large landslide blocked the road through the valley, leading to the village of dark elves of Feifei, and now this path had become inaccessible. The village of dark elves was located at the end of the western gorge, in the territory controlled by Farline. Traveling was easier for them because they managed to join a merchant who was going that way with his cart. Sho thought that dark elves could do magic. The girl replied that they really knew magic, but even she could not cope with such a huge stone. The boy could not believe that he had really become so powerful. He was confused and did not know how to act next, so he decided to seek advice from a mage who possessed powerful magic. Fifi explained that it would be too expensive for them. Their village was not wealthy, but true masters are special people. They sometimes agree to work not only for pay, but also because they are interested in the work itself. The boy laughed and replied that it happens to everyone. He admitted that he becomes weak when a beautiful girl asks him for help. At that moment, he truly felt what it means to be a man. He suggested the girl call him simply Sho, and even joked that maybe he would come up with a nickname for her later. The girl accepted his offer, and they continued on together in the cart that rumbled loudly. Meanwhile, the boy could not understand where the noise was coming from. The coachman approached the master and warned that the situation had become dangerous. Demons surrounded them, and several pairs of eyes were already peeking out from the bushes, ready to pounce on them at any moment. Faye looked around and noticed black wolves. She realized that they had accidentally ended up in the territory of these beasts. Sha stood confused and did not know what to do next, while the girl suggested distracting the wolves. One by one, angry wolves began to emerge from the bushes, showing their sharp fangs. The elf turned to Sha and advised him to quickly climb a tree. He became lighter, so he was able to grab a branch and quickly climb the tree. The wolves immediately tried to climb after him. Sho noticed that there were too many enemies. The girl was upset because her bow was still being repaired, so she was defenseless. The boy was confused and stood still, deciding that they would not get out. But Faye reminded them that they could use magic. She had fire magic, but she did not want to use it. The pelts of black wolves are not cheap, so burning them is not the best idea, but Sho explained that he meant something completely different. Lightning magic can strike several people at once, and those nearby will fall from a strong blow. The girl said with a smile and admiration that everything was fine and she understood everything. She added, "If lightning hit this tree, disaster would happen, so the boy had to come up with something to avoid that." And finally an idea struck him. If they used the blessing of the spirits, they could protect everything around them. When he used lightning magic, the air around became heavier, the water began to disappear, and storm clouds appeared in the sky. The girl really liked the spectacle, and the boy simply showed the change in weather using his magic. There was no water nearby, but a strange humidity was felt in the forest. Dark clouds covered the sky, lightning began to flash, and one of them soon struck somewhere near them. The boys jumped down and ran away from the tree. All the wolves were no longer moving, and this greatly pleased Faye. The man in the cart stood waiting for 2 passengers. The girl approached the merchant to ask what price he would offer for these people. The merchant still wanted to make sure they were really ready to buy, as it was important. The girl confidently replied that she had enough money. Sho thought for a moment and admitted that he had always dreamed of meeting the Black Wolf. The girl replied that it was exactly the same, referring to the show in which Boulder stands in the way of her village. He looked at that stone giant and could not believe his eyes. How was that even possible? He did not understand what kind of boulder it was or how it ended up here. Compared to it, the people around seemed tiny, like insects. The people greeted Feifei with joy. The girl approached the boys and proudly announced that she had brought a real master with her. The people clapped their hands happily, thinking that they could finally feel safe. Yet he still could not imagine how he would be able to destroy it all. The village of Dark Elves was located on this continent, near a huge cliff stretching from east to west. The settlement lies at the very end of a valley that formed after a great land fissure. However, in the valley lies a huge stone that fell from the cliff. Its height is about 30 meters, and it completely blocked the path for wagons and all other vehicles. The boy used magic, and suddenly there was an explosion. Sho tried to hide it, but when the smoke cleared, a black hole appeared at the site of the spell. The magic of air compression only slightly scorched the surface. In the old world, such an effect would be like a dynamite explosion, but he needed to reach an even higher temperature. When air is compressed, it becomes hotter because the molecules start moving faster and produce more heat. For example, if you compress the air twice as much, even more heat will be released, and the pressure will become higher. He tried to use several types of magic simultaneously. It was difficult but achievable. Now he is trying to apply the same magic for the second time for the first time. When you use two different types of magic at the same time, it is like holding a baseball bat with both hands, convenient and reliable. But if you try to double the same magic simultaneously, it is like putting one bat on top of another. It becomes uncomfortable and unstable. The boy decided to try something new, but it could be dangerous. It is better for everyone to stay away from him, and for you, it is important to remain attentive and not get distracted now. In the center, everything became bright white. If that is the case, the temperature must exceed 5,000 degrees. The boy decided to test his method on a stone, and the stone began to melt. He decided to put in even more effort. Suddenly, the boy was surprised. Black liquid started leaking from the stone. The heated stone suddenly began to burst outwards. Shu was scared because it happened very close, all because he lost vigilance for a moment. Perhaps it broke out because it pierced a hole right through everything, and because of this, the pressure increased. Because of this, Faye was very scared for her life. She started calling his name and saw with relief that Shu managed to open his eyes. The girl was very worried if he was okay. Shu quietly apologized because he had no magic left at all. She understood that these boulders could bring him a lot of trouble. If they do not manage, they will have to simply make a road for the carts. Shu believed that his magic would help to go further, but this magic is special. It can only be used twice a day, so it might take some time. The girls smiled and noted that it was a trifle compared to the hours they spent training their skills. Shu put all his effort into opening the passage. The stone gave way and cracked, but it did not split completely. If you insert the double compression sleeve horizontally, it can cause a lava explosion. It will burst outwards, which is very dangerous. Therefore, the sleeve should be pushed straight, then slightly down and pulled back again. Then once more straight and again slightly down and back. Sho noted that it is very exhausting, so the master could rest a little if Feet asks. Now Sho was on his knees before the girl, and from embarrassment his face turned bright red. He was surprised that it mattered so much to them and was a bit confused, but the girl assured him, actually, it is not like that, they just want to be polite to someone who might be helpful. Some elves grumbled that they had never been treated so well before. The Fae peeked out of the tent and sternly ordered them to be quiet, reminding them that they needed to clean up the trash first. The boy thought to himself that these elves were true Amazons. 10 days passed, everyday magic was fired here, and gradually the opening in the boulder became larger and larger. Finally the tunnel was opened, and everyone sincerely rejoiced, for now the way to the village was free again. The elder of the dark elves stood confused, unable to find words to express gratitude for the deed done for him. Shu looked at the old man in surprise and wondered how old he was. Meanwhile, I calmed him down and told him not to worry. He was satisfied with having managed to test double magic activation. He did not even want to imagine the fuss Leela would have caused if he had tried it right in the castle. I assumed that they might possess a rare mineral found only in this part of the world, or have something of an unusual color. But one of the girls remembered noticing black stones, so the boy immediately asked her again, thinking it might be obsidian. The girl was surprised. She did not believe it was obsidian, as the stone broke easily. Faye also did not understand how such a fragile rock could be of any help. Sho really wanted to find him and find out where he was now. He was told that he was on the stone wall near the entrance to the valley. The boy expressed a desire to be shown everything on the way back, and the girls immediately agreed with joy. Fate said that Sho helped their village and promised to confirm it. A limestone hill rose before them, and the girl pointed out that this was exactly where the very stones were located. The elf noticed that this layer was made of black stone, but it was so fragile that it crumbled at the slightest touch and was not suitable even for making an arrowhead. Sho realized that he needed to verify his suspicions. Therefore, he knocked and, prying off a small piece of stone, tried to make sure if it was really what he thought. The man placed one stone on another and decided to set it on fire. Faye was amazed, as she did not expect that this stone could catch fire. The man rejoiced that Yugulki exist in this world, for thanks to them, the true path to the Industrial Revolution began. The elf was very surprised to notice that stones could burn and thought that magic must be involved. The boy explained that usually fire requires magic, but these special stones can burn on their own, so the fuel problem was solved immediately. Now even a steam engine could be made from these stones. In any case, he will take the sample to Her Highness and tell her everything he has learned. Meanwhile, we will gather people to start the investigation. The girl was upset that they had to travel such a long way since it was already starting to get dark. The boy suggested finding a place to rest today, but she did not want to return so late, so the girl said they would stay overnight right in the middle of the field. Shu could not believe what he heard and was very surprised. Fei calmly explained that they are always nearby and there is nothing to worry about because they are elves. The boy replied that it was not about that at all. He simply could not imagine that there would also be a place for him. The elf noticed that her house was a bit messy, but still offered to stay the night. She promised to prepare dinner for him. That morning Shaw stretched out on the sofa, feeling pain in his back. After a few pull-ups, he turned his gaze to the other side. Fei was sleeping peacefully, so the boy carefully decided to leave the room so as not to wake her. The queen got a little angry with him and wondered where he had gone. Later, she realized that he had gone to the village of the Dark Elves. She was sure it was very cozy there and decided not to worry. In any case, the queen was waiting for good news, and her husband gladly agreed to help. He laid several pieces of coal on the table. Layla looked at them, and not understanding what was being talked about, said that it was just black stones. Now they found themselves in Rasail's workshop. The man guessed that perhaps it was about using this stone as fuel. The queen immediately noticed that the stone did not possess any magical properties at all. The man nodded and explained that it was not a magic stone and there was no mana in it. Shu wanted to check this, took some coal, poured it into a special vessel, and set it on fire. Leela was delighted by this. Rasail explained that this device has extraordinary power and can solve the problem of fuel shortage. Sho explained that these stones are well suited for use as domestic fuel. They first steam them, then roast them in a furnace to remove excess impurities. After that, the stones will produce fuel called coke. Thanks to this, it will be possible to produce even more iron than before. However, one difficulty arose. A lot of smoke appeared in the air. When they burned coal, smoke and soot filled the city and began to harm people's health. During the Industrial Revolution, many people died from the smoke caused by burning coal, and the richer the country became, the more acute this problem became. Leela wondered if he thought about this. The boy assured her that, of course, he did. When smoke gets into water, soot and toxic substances dissolve in it. The problem with coal smoke is that it contains hydrogen sulfide, and this substance dissolves well in water. The girl was worried about what would happen to the water into which this poison entered. However, there is a solution. For example, insects can be thrown into this water. Insects are creatures that eat dead bodies and various sludge. They help rivers and canals stay clean, especially in places where there is no sewage system. It is necessary to consider how many insects are here, but everyone was confident they could handle it. Leela immediately understood everything. Rasail supported this idea, and the girl suggested sending researchers to inspect the coal mines. To start the mine, first roads need to be laid, forest thickets cleared, and bridges built. Besides this, a railway will have to be constructed for transporting coal. There will be a lot of work here. Stella noticed the girl and addressed her, telling her that Sho had already returned. The boy instantly looked at the master and Stella, completely not understanding what was happening. Rubia had no idea where the boy had been all these 10 days, not even saying anything to her or his master. To her question, he briefly answered that he was dealing with matters in the village of Dark Elves. The girls were genuinely surprised when they learned about the Dark Elves. The boy could not understand who they were talking about. The girls assumed that he went there simply for the sake of large breasts, since, according to rumors, Dark Elves are often associated precisely with this. Sho denied that they were wrong, saying that he was trying to help them solve their difficulties. The master understood everything but still could not decide what he preferred more, her breasts or the dark-eared elves. To this, Sho answered without hesitation that, of course, he preferred his master's breasts. Rubia thought in surprise where he got such conclusions. I realized that Sho had something to compare. As Fei had just entered the room, she wanted to ask why Sho was so late. Everyone looked at her with irritation. The most interesting thing happened when the elf and the dark elf finally met. They were both surprised by each other's appearance. Sho felt some embarrassment and explained that this was just one of 36 cunning strategies. The girl said loudly and offended, "The best way out is simply to take and run away," and in response he shouted to her, "Goodbye." They ran again from one shop to another until they stopped at a convenient place. Sho was breathing heavily after a long run and no longer doubted that elves and dark elves do not befriend each other. Fei told that among the dark elves there is a legend. Elves and dark elves were once one people and lived together in the world of elves. They could not understand each other, and because of this enmity their world perished. They all ended up here, leaving behind their former civilization. Show was struck by the depth of this story. Suddenly they burst into the show, began shouting that everyone should run away. People ran out of the city in panic, warning each other about the danger and urging to flee as quickly as possible. One of the locals suddenly stopped, and with tears in his eyes, turned to the show host for help. He said that a demon had taken his child. Show was sincerely impressed and turned his head in the direction from which people were running. The boy from the orphanage ended up in the claws of a terrible creature and begged for help. It was a giant demonic beast around which leaves were swirling. People below begged someone to save the child. The boy was grabbed by a harpy. Fei could not understand how she ended up in this place. Show realized that his lightning together with Fei's magic could reach the child. He was confused, looking for a way out, but as soon as he asked himself this question, the solution came by itself. He remembered the slingshot he had crafted during games with the children in the shelter. If he combined his magic with the spells of Fei, that would be enough to defeat the enemies. Kinetic energy depends on mass and the square of velocity. At that very moment, he fired a projectile towards the monster. The heavier the bullet, the stronger its impact. But if magic is used to make the bullet lighter and give it greater speed, its power increases even more. And if the magic is turned off just before the bullet hits the target, the force will be even greater. Show was convinced that she could cut off the man's head. In response, he realized that he had to shoot her once more. And suddenly the arrow hit the monster right in the heart, and the boy did not hide his surprise. Russell stood with a bow in his hands and angrily called the monster a filthy beast. He loudly ordered the creature to release the boy. Show noticed Russell and sincerely thanked him for the help. At that moment, the bird screamed and whimpered in pain. Fei warned that she was going to attack and also planned to drop masonry on them. The whirlwind around the bird grew stronger and stronger, so everyone hurried to hide inside the building. The bird instantly changed its form and began shooting projectiles at the city residents and heroes. Suddenly Stella appeared before the boys. They immediately raised a protective barrier, and Show was glad to see her. He thought that her work was truly impressive. The barrier allowed seeing everything around, but completely stopped any physical blows. Stella proudly looked around and assured that she could even repel the flames of the dragon itself. Show found it hard to understand how all this was happening. He noticed how photons simply passed through him. It turned out that this protection could not stop lasers, microwave magic, or solar panels that collect light. Suddenly Rubella appeared. She immediately understood that the situation was complicated. Seeing Shu, she warned him. If he did not retreat, he might get injured, as the girl was about to explode. The boy called out to her, asking her to stop because he thought she was not herself. There were many children around, and she was capable of destroying the entire city. But Rubia calmly replied, there would be no avoiding casualties. The girl stopped confusedly. Seriousness was readable on her face. Ficky suddenly jumped onto the balcony to Russell, briefly diverting his attention from the matter. Jokingly, she asked to give her the bow, and then simply took it for herself. She pulled the bowstring tightly and released an arrow, aiming it directly at the monster. The giant held the boy in his palm and roared loudly, frightening the whole city. Suddenly he unclenched his fingers, and the boy swiftly fell down. Fei loudly called Shu so that he would notice the danger. Shu instantly looked up and saw that the boy was about to fall. Without wasting time, he rushed to him, and when the boy was almost reaching the ground, Shu decided to use his power to reduce his weight. Shu managed to catch him just before the ground, and then immediately rushed to jump out the window. In just a few jumps, he found himself near the door and the girl. She was so surprised that she involuntarily covered her mouth with her hand. The boy immediately asked her to take care of the child. The girl got scared, took the boy in her trembling hands, and her eyes filled with tears. She was noticeably confused. Shu called her to come in quickly. His voice sounded loud because he was very worried about the city residents and the child that the bird had almost grabbed. The girl gathered her strength, nodded seriously in response, and supported his decision. The bird raised its sword, and this immediately attracted the attention of Shu and Fei. They called the boy for help again. Meanwhile, the bird started a new attack. Many projectiles flew toward the boy. He could not hide from all of them and received several hits, one of which struck him right in the heart. Out of fear, the girl screamed his name. Stones painfully struck the boy, leaving wounds on him. The dark elf cries out in fear. At that moment, his phone breaks and memories from the past surface in his consciousness. Show starts recording a video, cheerfully addressing the viewers to the camera. He states his name and introduces himself as the king of inventions of this channel. The boy holds up a round alarm clock to the camera and announces that today they will assemble it together. He adds that this alarm clock can work on its own. Eventually, he notices that the recording stopped somewhere in the middle. Reviewing what he filmed, he sees how at the end the boy asks to subscribe to the channel and to like the video. He sees that his video has already been watched by 12 people, although only 3 have subscribed so far. The boy is glad that the audience is growing and new comments are appearing. The main character ponders what else interesting he could film and begins to dream about how he will someday buy himself a new camera. Suddenly, the boy hears someone calling his name. He opens his eyes and nervously inhales. The girl standing nearby noticed the wounds on his chest and said she would help him now. However, Sho replied that he was fine. There was something in his pocket that once saved his life. He wonders why he is risking so much again. The man asks where the harpy went and learns that she is watching everything closely, flying in the sky above them. The girl suggests that since they have already saved the child, they should just blow everything up and start the attack. But Sho stops her, explaining that they cannot do that because they want to cause as little damage to the city as possible. The girl asks what they should do in this situation. The boy says he has an idea, but he is not strong enough to cast magic on such a large thing, so he needs help. She immediately understood what the main character meant. He quickly moved from the spot, promising to show her the way, and gave a signal to start the escape together with her. The boy quickly creates a bullet and directs it straight at the harpy. She never even imagined he could dare to do such a thing, so she was shocked and confused. She reverses backward, and Shaw calls the master, ordering him to start immediately. The girl confidently raises the staff and begins to cast a spell to become heavier. The monster falls and the main hero quickly pulls out a knife, then lunges at him. During the jump, he deliberately increases his weight and strikes with all his might right in the heart. Blood gushed from the enemy's body, and he fell to the ground, no longer moving. The monster was finally defeated. The girl asked Sho if everything between them was already over. To this, Sho replied that yes, if one believes her words. People screamed with joy because the host of the show defeated the harpy. Everyone around is happy. Stella noticed that it is rare to find such a fresh harpy body and its valuable materials. She decided to arrange for these trophies to be delivered to the castle later. The father approaches the boy who was saved and his mother. All 3 hug and cry joyfully, not hiding their happiness. Suddenly, Layla appears in the carriage. She approaches Shaw and asks if he is okay. Shaw looks at her in surprise, not understanding how she ended up here. She says that she heard some noise and hurried here. Seeing him all wounded, she asks if he managed to defeat the demon. The main character admits that all this became possible not only thanks to him. His friends, the master, and also Stella and Fei, the dark elf, helped him. He also recalls that the master from the forge came to his aid. He is very grateful to him for that. Her Highness announced that as a token of gratitude for their brave deed, she will give them 2 gold coins. The boy asks if she wishes him to give her these things. Layla replies that she does not have cash with her now, but she promises to return the money later. The girl sincerely thanks Fei for the support and invites her to visit them more often. In the castle, Fei, together with another knight, engaged in a sword duel. The girl confidently wins the duel, skillfully disarming her opponent. Layla, with her hands proudly raised on her hips, looks at her and confidently says that she does not doubt her abilities. Her assistant asked if she was sure about her decision, since trusting dark elves is dangerous. She admitted that it was true and explained. Although dark elves have long known about the village on their land, they are not officially considered its inhabitants. However, they sought to invite the most talented workers to themselves. To this, the girl noted that she had heard these people made great efforts to protect the show and prevent the city from suffering. She claims that Mizuki has just set off to the Empire and can become her companion, but the elf remains distrustful. She asked if she would get money for this. Layla confirmed with a modest smile that she would. The boy is happy for his girlfriend. She confesses that working in the castle is a great dream for a dark elf, so she is sincerely grateful to the main heroine. Layla, standing aside, smiles and remarks that perhaps later the girl will regret it. After some time, the boy enters the room and looks at his broken phone. He realizes that he is not in the best shape right now, but this phone was a true friend to him. Now he doubts that he can shoot a video about all those things and magic he invented in this world. The boy carefully places the item in the box, closes it, and thanks for saving his life. He sat down on the bed and pondered the demons that would not give him peace. The master explained to him that in this world demons very rarely attack people. He understood why they might do it. People often enter their lands. But this harpy had come to the city specifically to kill, and Shu wondered if something strange had happened to her. Several weeks passed. The main character was walking down the street when he suddenly noticed a carriage. His face lit up with a quiet smile, and he was genuinely surprised by this sight. The show wonders why such a beautiful girl like her has to enter through the back door when important guests go through the front doors. Suddenly from behind, Nima shouted to him, "Good morning." The girl asked where he had gone so early, and the boy explained that he had set off to the forest to gather ingredients. The main character asks the girl if she wants to have breakfast. She replies that His Highness is waiting for him in the office because there is a guest there. The boy guesses that this is the same guest he saw in the carriage. Already in the office, Leela asks Rubia how she is doing. Rubia admits that she cannot help at all right now. At that moment, a guy enters and addresses the girl. He asks if she wanted to talk to him. Layla is happy that he finally arrived. The girl leads him to Princess Mi Luna, introducing the show. He politely bows and says he is glad to meet her in person. The girl with a scar on her face calls herself Maruna. She says her full name is Luna Faltas and that she is the first princess of the Faltas family. The princess says that in Faltas, he is known as an outstanding master who always seeks the truth. She is confident that only he can help her. The boy notices a burn on the girl and realizes that she has a severe burn. He asks where the wound came from, and the girl explains that, as usual, she went to the forest to collect plants for her hobby, but suddenly a demon attacked her. Lately, people often said that demons started attacking people from time to time, but she could not even imagine that one day it would happen to her. Layla recalls how harpies have recently started appearing nearby, which worries her because demons are increasingly spotted near Farline, and she has also heard rumors that flying dragons have been seen here, while the boy is very surprised that it is specifically about dragons. The girl turns to Shaw and asks if he can somehow help with Maluna's wounds. Shaw only sighs and says that if even his teacher was powerless, then he won't be able to help either. The main character recalls that in his world, burns are usually treated by skin grafting or growing new skin from its pieces. Suddenly, the guy remembers how he twice created an orchid clone using magic. Now he wonders if he can use the same magic to affect the skin. The girl is interested in whether he can offer something better. The main character says he has an idea, but for now it is only a theory. He is not sure if it will actually be realized and what consequences it may lead to. But the man explains that it will not return immediately. It will take time for everything to be restored. The princess agrees to these conditions and adds that the ugly daughter of the royal family has nothing good. She explains that without her true face, she will not be able to return home. The boy listens to her, but does not understand what it means. Maruna places her hand on her chest and confesses that she has nothing left to lose. She asks him to do it. He cannot understand why she considers herself worthless because she lost her appearance and does not understand what prompted her to think that way. The girl says that a person's true value is determined not only by their appearance, and that is indeed true. But Maruna says that she is a princess of the small kingdom of Faltas. For the happiness of her family and the welfare of the country, she must marry the right family on time. Therefore, Maruna must always look good. This is her main royal duty. The boy wondered if her destiny was really to marry for the sake of her country, and the girl replied that she accepts it because she was born a rose, not just a simple wildflower. Other girls just silently watch all this. The main character quietly says that he understands her feelings. He explains that this method has never been applied to humans before, so it is unknown what side effects or consequences may arise. The show warns the girl to be ready for anything. She agrees. Some time passed, and the princess was already laid on the operating table. The main character stood nearby in a white medical coat and a mask on his face. He takes a scalpel in his hands and calms down. The main character is confident that the master will support him if something goes wrong, so he decides to take the risk and try. The boy says that he will first treat the shoulder with alcohol, and Maruna agrees with this. Next, he administers anesthesia, and then immerses the necessary object in liquid using 4 special tweezers. He explains that this is a special agent that temporarily relieves pain in the injured area so that she does not suffer. For anesthesia, he uses spider venom. When he was preparing chocolate, he also took venom. It turned out that this venom quite effectively relieves pain if applied to a certain spot. The boy warned her that soon she would be so cold that she wouldn't even be able to feel him nearby. Maruna admitted that she was really very cold. Ruby asks in surprise how such an idea even occurred to him. She adds that she does not know how to use paralysis magic. It turns out that even a simple doctor who does not possess magic can still use its power. He asks the patient if she feels unwell or notices any discomfort. She replies that she has none of that. The main character carefully makes an incision and prepares to roll up the skin he has already cut, while simultaneously reciting a spell to accelerate healing and the body's reactions. The spell for accelerating growth helps the skin recover faster. If used together with magic that speeds up growth, the cells begin to actively divide and the tissues quickly regenerate. Skin cells begin to grow much faster than usual, and gradually the new skin covers and heals the wound. In half an hour, it restores about 3 centimeters of surface, and if you add magic, then in a day it comes out to 5 to 6 centimeters. He tells her that she looks extraordinary today. The boy raises the mirror and shows it to the girl, explaining that it was previously only partially restored, but now it is healing better. The girl smiles and admits that she has never seen such a beautiful mirror. The main character apologizes to her and asks her to pay attention to his work, not to his reflection in the mirror. The princess looks at what he has restored and says admiringly that it is wonderful. Later, Layla enjoys pancakes with Mont Blanc cream and boiled beans. The main character learns with surprise that she and Felties are cousins. Layla explains that her late mother and Queen Felties were biological sisters. The girl adds that they can only see each other once a year, although they used to spend a lot of time together playing in the Farties' royal villa by the lake. Maruna admits that she misses those happy days, and the boy looks at them suspiciously in response. The princess is amazed because this place seems like a completely different world to her. She sees delicious pastries she has never tasted before. Around her is a bright room with luxurious glass resembling crystal. She tells Layla that she probably really can rest because she was lucky with a good master. She admits that she might even be a little jealous of this. The girl turned to Shaw and promised to pay him twice, or maybe even 3 times more, if he agreed to work for her. Layla got angry and asked the girl how she could even say such a thing in her presence. The main character smiles and gently apologizes, explaining that he cannot agree. He gave his word to Her Highness to stay here and work for the development of this country, so he has no right to leave it. The girl was impressed by the oath of a true master. His behavior reminded her of a noble knight. She had never met such people before, as true masters usually seek worthy employers. He explained that the matter here is not about money. However, he does not have enough money, only enough for food. Layla told the girl that all the money earned from the show they give to the orphanage. Maruna was very surprised by this. The main character explains that all his efforts are for Farline, as children are a true wealth of the country for him. The girl considers him very strange, but the princess confidently says that there is logic in it. Maruna points out that it is unfair to take away a talented child's chance to fulfill their dreams just because they were born into the wrong family. She believes that investing in the development of children, who may later become the support of their country, will help them grow into better people in the future. The main character wonders, maybe the princess has a real talent for craftsmanship. Layla looks at him in surprise. She cannot believe he has not noticed this until now. The girl said that she studied under a master. Sho was about to say something in response, but at that moment, Stella entered the room and noticed with surprise that she smelled a sweet fragrance. Maruta greeted her and noted that they had not met for a long time. The girl was surprised by Maruta's appearance. Stella looks at the main heroine in surprise, notices her scar, and asks where it is from. She calls the scar disgusting, and then the main heroine guesses that Stella used to serve the princess. Princess Melona's was treated for 3 days, and it seemed that she was already recovering. But on the 4th day, she suddenly developed a high fever. The medication quickly restored the skin, enhancing the body's natural ability to heal. For this, a lot of effort will have to be spent, so the main heroine understands that she needs to rest a little. But unexpectedly, a new show starts in the middle of the night. Layla asks him to come again and share his story. The main character asks where they are now, and the girl replies that this is the very place where their feelings will remain unfulfilled, and it is here that they will long for their love. The main character asks how the girl feels. She smiles and says that today she feels much better. The boy notices that Princess Melona's burned scars gradually fade over time, and she begins to look better and better. The main character calmly stands and waters the plant growing right in front of him. Suddenly, a princess approaches him and says that this plant is very rare. She asks to see it closer, and the man agrees. Shaw says that the treatment is almost finished. Maruna agrees with him and adds that she does not even know how to thank him. Hearing this, the main character calms the girl, saying that the most important thing is her safety. At these words, the girl blushes, her cheeks flush, and she gently presses against him. He drops the watering can and tells her that she shouldn't act that way. She apologizes to him and admits that she has never experienced such emotions before. The hero reminds the girl that as soon as her face heals, she must return to her duties. She agrees to this but remains a bit uncertain. She worries that the girl may have confused the joy of recovering from burns with genuine feelings for him, but she denies this and insists that he is truly a wonderful person. Princess Maruna admits that she is not a match for him, and in this, she is not mistaken. She asks if their fate could have turned out differently if they had met before he met Layla. The boy replies that it would not have changed anything and adds that he is grateful not only to Her Highness, but also to the master, Stella, and everyone who works in the castle. The girl asks again because she does not understand what is being talked about. The main character replies that he meant Miss Ruby. He explains, when he got lost in the forest and ended up here, it was Miss Ruby who saved him and helped him become a true master. He adds that if it were not for this event, he would never have met her. The girl became upset, smiled sadly, and confessed that she had dreamed of being born a simple wildflower, not an exquisite rose. The princess turned to leave, and finally announced that her parents would come for her next week. The main heroine is surprised to learn that the king and queen themselves will come to her. She explains that she wrote to them. Her burns have almost healed, yet the royal couple wishes to personally visit both her and him. The main character smiles and replies that then he should show everyone her beautiful face. The girl turns to him and, smiling through tears, agrees. A week later, Mirota's face was completely healed, and King Faltas together with Queen Eliza looked at her in surprise. The man is amazed and calls it a true miracle, but the woman does not share his opinion and says she does not believe in such things. However, the princess herself confirms it was Sho who healed her face. The king shook his hand and said that he had performed a true miracle. The boy did not expect such words and was stunned with amazement. He explains that this is not some miracle, but a real healing that can be explained by reason, magic, and the princess's perseverance. She went through difficult trials and did not give up, and it was thanks to her strength that this recovery became possible. The king thanks the main hero for saving the princess from great danger. In response, the hero modestly says that true masters always bow to their queen. The man replied no. He thanked him not as a czar, but as the father of his beloved girl. Fultus bowed his head low and expressed gratitude. Some time passed, and the main hero decided to show the queen and princess his workshop. He suggested they look around while the king and queen were busy talking. The woman approaches Shaw and asks if the magic that helped her daughter can also heal other people. She lightly touches her face and notes that recently she has developed fine wrinkles near her eyes. The main hero confirms that these are indeed wrinkles and adds that if he has already taken on removing sagging skin under the chin, he can also handle the wrinkles near the eyes. The woman sincerely marvels that he is capable of such things. He tells her that this task is much simpler than how they treated the princess's burns. Therefore, Shaw suggests the woman try it herself, and she gladly agrees. King Faltas and Layla finished their meeting. He said that although there was little time, they worked well together. Layla added that they probably still have many matters to attend to, as it is already time to go. Feltos returned to his wife and said it was time to get ready for the journey. Then suddenly, he noticed her face. He asks Eliza what happened to her face. The woman only smiles in response and is glad that he noticed. She admits that she also wanted to try the local master's magic. The man is surprised and asks if it is perhaps the elixir of youth. The main heroine explains to him that in reality she is still the same age as before. It's just that he slightly stretched the wrinkles on her face, and over time they will become as they were again. And he is surprised and cannot understand how this is possible. The king insists that his magic will definitely appeal to women. Soon news about the magical treatment spread among kings and nobility across the continent. When the princess regained her beautiful skin and the queen began to look younger, ladies and royal families started approaching them with various requests and proposals. The main hero performs surgery on a woman, after which he assures, now he will freeze her skin. Time passes, and every day the wrinkles and sagging gradually disappear, but despite the result, the show is not satisfied. The hero is upset, almost crying, because he believes he is not a cosmetic surgeon at all. Layla and Sho sit together and drink tea. The girl notices that he is worried about his health. Sho admits that from fatigue his strength is leaving him, and if he fulfills wishes every day, his body will not endure. Despite this, Layla is glad that he can at least earn money. She recalls hearing that it was enough for Maruna to slightly change her appearance for many proposals to immediately start coming to her. The girl wonders if she was really unattractive before that. The boy asks if Princess Maruna has a chance to meet a worthy partner. The queen replies that there are many in the world who would not mind taking advantage of the opportunity to present themselves favorably. In a distant alley lives a person who seemed to be suitable for Maruna. This is Viscal Firas. People trust him, and in general, he is not bad. But the girl thinks he is not suitable for the role of a family man, and she also believes that this name is too weak, so she cannot recommend it. In response, the main hero says that a name can be anything, and even gives an example. He suggests taking on the production of crystal glass and telling everyone that the Viscount launched it into mass production. He also advises promoting the Viscount to an honorary title. Very soon he may become a duke. The girl claims that this is not true, but the boy replies that it only seems so at first. He sincerely believes Princess Maruna studied under a true master, and she is the one who can be trusted with work on glass. The queen says that Princess Maruna was once in love with him and accuses Sho, calling him a cruel person. The main hero cannot understand what is being talked about. After this, Her Highness wrote a letter to Falties, in which she introduced the Viscount. She explained that industry is currently actively developing in his lands, and many new opportunities await them ahead. Princess Maruna immediately felt deep feelings for him, and soon they announced their engagement and became truly happy. The main character arrived at the Viscount's estate for only a few days to teach them how to make glass. If he starts managing the glass factory, all other affairs will fail. But to protect the residents of Farline, he was forced to take this step. Since the main character last visited his mentor's house in the forest, a lot of time has passed. Rubia anxiously notes that the boy has come so far and asks why he is here. The boy replies that he recently remembered the harpy because he heard news about a demon attack on her. The show explains that if something unexpected happens, Farline must learn to defend himself without the help of magic. That is why he strives to create a fiery potion, that is, gunpowder. The girl asks with surprise if he really means it as a weapon, and the boy nods, confirming her guess. He, being a true master, knows exactly that she understands. If this weapon becomes very powerful, the consequences could be serious. Rubia first thinks about it, then nods in response, but makes it clear that she does not intend to interfere in his affairs. The girl says that if Sho tries to use him for bad purposes, she, as his mistress, will do everything possible to stop him. But the boy smiles and says that he is glad that she became his mistress. He explains that then he will be able to get to work, but it is dangerous, so the main character asks her to stay by his side. He immediately gets to work on the gunpowder. The main character decided to make it using saltpeter. For this, you need to take forest humus and some manure from the farmyard. Simply put, it is waste left by the owner, as well as some of his own. He mixes manure with humus, adds magic that accelerates fermentation, stirs everything thoroughly, and an unpleasant smell begins to emanate. The main character puts his hand to his nose to avoid the unpleasant smell and wonders why everything seems so confusing to him in this new world. At the same time, Sho tries to calm himself with the thought that everything he does will benefit the country. The stench is unpleasant, but for him this smell is familiar since childhood. His mother and father live in the village, and their cars often drive through the streets collecting waste. He throws the ground tablets inside. Suddenly Rubia appeared. She covered her nose with her hand and asked what this strange smell was. The main character reminds her that he advised her to stay home because it is dangerous here. He also tells her to pinch her nose. The girl exclaims that she does not understand the boy's words. She is sure that a true master always notices the moment when his student reaches true understanding. The girl approaches, but the sharp smell makes her turn away. Sho notes that he warned her about this. The boy advises her to watch, but asks not to come too close. Fermentation became even more active, and now there is probably saltpeter in this liquid. He plans to extract it from this place, since nitrate dissolves well in water. He needs to throw this substance into a cauldron of water and heat everything using magic. Some might find this unpleasant. When all the products were processed, the water in the cauldron evaporated. A thick layer of white crystals resembling needles formed on the walls. These are nitrocrystals. The mixture contains many impurities, but the purity can be increased by recrystallizing this mixture several times. Rubia asks if this potion is for igniting. Sho replies that no, this is only one of its components. He promises to return to the workshop tomorrow and finish everything necessary. Sho admits that he wants to make black powder, and for this he will also need charcoal and sulfur, besides the powder itself. The girl wonders how he managed to make this from something so smelly. The main character explains that he used trash. She asks if it was from her trash. The boy is confused and silent, not knowing what to answer. Rubia is angry and shouts loudly at him. In the workshop, Stella laughs because Sho made a weapon from Rubia's excrement. The girl next to them is offended by such a joke and feels embarrassed, her cheeks covered with a blush. The girl notes that now she understands why he smells so unpleasant. The main character replies that he only recently washed, and his clothes look clean. Therefore, he begins to doubt whether his sense of smell is all right. Stella utters a cleansing spell. The boy notices with surprise that she can get rid of his smell and thinks that this is very convenient. She asked what he needs these crystals for and what he intends to do with them. He tells her that to saltpeter one must add sulfur and charcoal in the ratio 7 to 2 to 1, then grind all the ingredients into a fine powder and mix them well together. Stella asks if this is really a weapon. Shu offers her to try it herself. He takes some of this substance and pumps out the air to avoid ignition. The main character lights it with a candle, and the thing immediately flares up. Stella wonders what is so unusual about it. Shu explains that first you need to press it all down. The girl is surprised and asks if she understood him correctly. Then Shu clarifies, first you need to moisten everything with water and then carefully wrap it in cloth. Shu says that it can be loaded as much as you want, but they use magic to compress the energy as quickly as possible. He explains that thanks to this compression, the reaction becomes more efficient and stronger. When it dries and becomes brittle, it is crushed into small granules using magic, and then it is ignited again. He raises the candle and lights the gunpowder scattered on a piece of cloth. The flame instantly flares up and spreads. Rubia notes that this is a completely different matter. Stella is impressed and says that it is simply wonderful. Now the black powder is already prepared. He only had to do what he ordered from the dwarf master and then deliver it to Her Majesty. After some time, the queen asked him if he had created anything new. The boy confirmed and offered her to look at his new invention. He pulls out a simple weapon with a folding lock. Its barrel and bullets were forged by dwarf craftsmen. The girl asks what it is. The boy answers that inside the tube at the end there is a gunpowder charge. After that, he takes a lead bullet and places it on top. He aims the weapon at a mannequin and fires. The bullet easily passes through the armor. All three girls look at each other confusedly. He explains to them that the lead bullet passed through the armor. When there is a person in armor, an arrow can pierce the body and even hit demons with thick skin. Layla wonders if this is real magic, but Shaw explains that there is nothing magical here, it is just science. The girl wonders if even untrained people will be able to use this weapon to shoot, and if ordinary peasants and regular girls will manage to defeat the monsters. The boy agrees. The queen, resting her chin on her hand, thoughtfully notes that this truth causes fear. Suddenly the main character starts laughing. He asks why they are so scared, since she will still find him some kind of job. The girls look confused. The queen warns him not to joke with her. The show obediently agrees. The main character explains that he will not sell weapons and gunpowder because these things are needed for the defense of the country if a threat suddenly arises. Gunpowder helps people in various tasks. For example, with its help, they break stones, which allows faster coal extraction. Stella says that if this thing spreads across the entire continent, it will be like opening the gates of hell. Nobel once created dynamite for peaceful work, but people quickly began to use it in wars. The old world taught us that abusing its possibilities only for peaceful purposes will not succeed, and the main hero strives to do everything so that the same mistakes are not repeated in this world. Layla says that if this thing ends up in the hands of someone powerful, a war may start, but after the Harpies' attack and the events with Maluna, she realizes demons are becoming bolder and bolder. Times have become troubled. Attacks can come both on the city and on the villages. The girl understands that as members of the royal family, they must be ready to defend their people in these difficult days. She asks the main character to make a weapon for her. He agrees and says he understands everything. Layla insists that no one can be told about this because it is a very important state secret. In his free time, he decided to make gunpowder himself, but understood that involving others was not advisable, otherwise the secret could quickly spread. Thanks to the secret budget allocated to him by Her Highness, he decided to purchase manure for animals to use it as raw material. He believed that this would significantly improve production efficiency. Their supplies are constantly increasing, but black powder must be handled very carefully, as it can ignite from friction or even static electricity. They moisten it and spread it all over the castle, and when the time comes, they dry everything with magical power. Later he planned to create another weapon. Some time passed, and at the training ground they were already testing the new anti-aircraft gun. When the volley thundered, an explosion was immediately heard. Kaka and Tika say that this is very cool. They are the twin brothers Chika. The boys are former hunters with very sharp eyesight. Kaka explains that it is all thanks to their ability to see well. Tika adds that he would have done the same. They can recognize an animal even from 1,000 kilometers away, so they decided to stand up for protection. The main character smiles and jokingly says that they have almost arrived. Layla happily rejoices, watching him fly into the distance, and asks with curiosity how far he can fly. Kaka thinks he has just covered a distance of 400 stops. He is confident that if he raises the trajectory a little more, he will be able to fly an additional 32 stops. They think very precisely, like by formulas. All their thoughts are built clearly, like a parabola. Shu believes this is a true talent, and the queen is amazed because she never imagined that such a thing could be done without magic. They ask if it is possible to obtain the same power with the help of this tube and magic dust as from real magic. The main character nods and promises that no one will find out about it. He adds that it is not worth taking the powder with them, and the boys agree with this. Layla addresses the chicken brothers and tells them that they are the best suited for this task. From now on, they become shooters in the show. The girl announces that their salary will be raised depending on the work done. The brothers thank her for this, and Layla gives the main character a new task to continue working on creating protective weapons. The girl says that Russell was upset when he found out that the main character had been so busy lately that he hadn't even visited him. Sho at this moment awkwardly admits that he feels embarrassed because of this. She says that excavations are currently underway in the coal mines and craft workshops, and roads and bridges are also being built, for which he gave them the task. She adds that there is still a lot of time until the next holiday, where their inventions will be shown. Then they ask him why he doesn't come to see them earlier. The boy nods and assures that he will definitely do everything. The main character smiles in response and says, "Now is the time to start preparing for the most important event of the entire festival." The main character looks at the large column with surprise and says that it is really huge. She came to see the new blast furnace in the castle workshop, as it was already completed. Sho enthusiastically calls this furnace a real wonder. The main characters demonstrated almost all the important mechanisms, and Mr. Russell together with the dwarves applied their skills to successfully complete the construction of the blast furnace. The man says that what impressed him the most was how he managed to teach them to make coke. Previously, to heat something, magic was needed, but now, with this new furnace, they will be able to smelt iron without any spells. But the blast furnace still requires ventilation, and it seems that now they manage this here with magic. Shu recalls that in the ordinary world, steam engines were used to supply air to the furnace. He really wants to start creating such a mechanism as soon as possible. However, to make an external heat engine or an internal combustion engine requires great effort. Even if they understand how it works, they will still have to overcome many difficulties to bring it to life. Shu is confident if Russell and his team are explained the basics, they are capable of creating such an engine. But even with this knowledge, they still need at least a working prototype. Suddenly, the man next to Shu turns to him and sincerely thanks him for his hard work. He notes that everyone here is trying their best. Russell silently nods, agreeing with these words. He says that inside the castle, they have laid a trolleybus line. Thanks to this, it has become much easier to transport coal and various cargoes. The man explains that trolleybuses will begin to be widely used in coal mines. The boy is happy because things are going wonderfully. The man is also satisfied and notes that this is only the first step toward a new era. To reach the mines, new roads were laid and bridges built. Coal was delivered by trains 2 to 3 wagons at a time. The need for energy was constantly increasing more and more. The city is filled with life. Every day more and more people learn about the changes around. The main character walks down the street and suddenly notices something special. He wondered what this magnificent building standing before him was, when suddenly a young man approached him and asked if by any chance he was the owner of this place. The man was glad that they had the chance to meet the master. Smiling, he nudges the main character inside and assures him that he has something special for him. He doesn't even have time to understand anything when he has already asked what kind of store this is. Noticing the man's creepy look nearby, he involuntarily gets scared and thinks that something bad is going on here. The man asks what kind of servants he would like to have. The main character is surprised because he did not even suspect that there could be servants here. He clearly remembers how advanced the civilization here is and understands that the presence of servants does not surprise anyone. The main character did not notice this at first, as he was not in the castle at that time. Her Majesty employs as many servants as she deems necessary and pays them accordingly. The man points to one of the servants and says that if anyone needs a protector, this man is the best fit because he used to be a warrior. Moreover, he only asks for 50 gold coins, a very good deal. The main character states that he never buys servants because it is absolutely unacceptable to him. He was surprised, for he never liked servants. The man says that children of bankrupt merchants and simple provincial nobles gather here. Those who have no other choice are taken here. This happens privately. In the show, such a situation is compared to a defense system for the whole world. The man notes that in the end someone will definitely buy them, but the servant will be very lucky if he becomes their owner. The show politely declined and thanked. The main character was about to leave when suddenly a man with a stern look blocked his way. He said he knew smart people who could help them. He adds that the girls upstairs can read, write, and count, then suggests checking it. Sho understands he still won't be released, so the main character agrees to watch and says he will just observe. He said he would wait downstairs, so there was no need to hurry and everything could be carefully examined. But the main character notices that many beautiful girls have gathered upstairs. He feels as if only special people could be there, just like in the salon of expensive cars. Suddenly, Shaw notices an extraordinarily beautiful girl in the crowd and involuntarily thinks that she probably used to belong to a noble family or was someone important. He cannot understand why it seems that she is dressed too elegantly. Suddenly, the girl gets up from her seat and approaches him. She approaches the bars and respectfully bows. The girl thanked him for coming to pick her up, addressed him as Mr. Zero, and Shaw recalled with surprise how Maria also spoke about Zero. The boy guesses that the girl is also connected to Zero. He states that he himself is not Zero, but acts as the host of the show, and asks if she recognizes him. The girl agrees and adds that Zero is her master. He inquired if she was familiar with Maria from the shelter, and if she helped her fight the illness. The girl confirmed that this was the case. She said that she purified streptomycin and gave Maria an injection. The protagonist was very surprised, as in his world this is a well-known antibiotic against tuberculosis. He cannot understand where she knows about this drug, which does not yet exist in this world. Shaw goes down the stairs and asks a man to come out to meet him. When they finally went upstairs, he was asked if he had a crush. The protagonist smiled, pointed to the girl next to him, and admitted that he liked her. The man says that he has a sharp eye, like a true master, and the girl is very smart. She reads, writes, and counts excellently. The boy asked about the price, and the man replied that he would sell it for 250 gold coins. Shaw was surprised to hear such a price, and could not understand why it was so high. The man explained to him that this girl is not only clever, but also has many useful skills. During the capture, they lost many of their people. The main character is surprised and unsure if all this is real. He admits that he only has 100 in his pocket. One of the men looks at him threateningly, while another suspects he is just joking. The boy offered them a fruit and asked if it would fit. The bald man says it's just some small fruit sold at the market. Another cannot understand why he says that, since even a spoiled fruit like this costs 100 gold. Moreover, it's raspberry. They pay 300-400 gold for it. The man smiles and says that this time they will have to manage with just berries instead of gold. Shu recalls how much Lil Merch berries cost and is a bit upset about such a loss, but quickly pulls himself together. The girl is finally released from the cage. Her name is Nanami. She answers his questions but tells almost nothing herself. He wonders if Maria knows about this. Later, Maria looks around in surprise, not understanding why he brought her here. The main character asks if she knows these people. Maria nods and explains that this is the same doll Mr. Zero once brought. Shu does not understand at all what the doll has to do with this and what exactly she means. The girl admits that at first she thought it was one of his assistants, but Zero-sama explained to her it was a robot. The main character asks in surprise if she is talking about a robot or something similar. Dinami explains that it actually resembles a robot the most. She says the series shows it as a being without free will, simply programmed to perform certain actions. The girl agrees with him, and Shu is amazed by such an answer. The main character is surprised how gentle and warm she feels to the touch. He notices that her body is no different from a human's. His attention is drawn to her hair, slightly moist lips, even her teeth and saliva are visible. The boy almost pressed against the girl to look into her mouth. Maria stood nearby and could not believe her eyes. Shu apologized and addressed Anami, asking where Zero is now and who he is if he is capable of such things. The girl explains that her body is entirely biological. She says they broke up because of some tragedy, and now she doesn't even know where he is. The main character admits that he hoped to find clues about his whereabouts. She is confident that everything will be resolved because he is beside her. Therefore, she asks him to come back to them once more. Some time passed, and the main character asks Nanami about the square root of 2. The girl wonders how many decimal places he needs, and he replies that he wants to know this number with an accuracy of 10 decimal places. The girl confidently names the required number, 14,142,135,623. When Shaw asks her to also find the cube root of 2, she immediately answers, 1,259,210,498. The main character cannot hide his surprise at the speed of her calculations. He quickly performed any calculations, no matter how complex the numbers were. The answer appeared instantly, as if he were a real human computer. That's exactly how they called him on the show. Regarding her skill, there is no arguing here. He simply imagines everything in his head, and she already skillfully works at the lathe. That's how he made the gear by guesswork. Rotary, cycloidal, and various gear wheels, the design of which previously required complex calculations, he can now quickly visualize in his mind and flawlessly reproduce the drawings. She is a real bio-CNC machine. At first he thought it was some kind of trick, but in his world such a machine would cost a fortune. The main character recalls the words of a man who said they hoped to meet him again. The knowledge of this machine is worth its weight in gold. He has the strongest assistant who has ever been alongside Zero. The main character feels capable of creating anything he desires. Some time had passed since the main character and Layla got into the car and set off on the road. The girl exclaimed joyfully that she really liked this trip. She asks Shaw if this is his cart without horses. Shaw confirms and explains that it is better to call it a car because it moves by itself. The girl likes this name. The main character explains that it is a machine and it does not get tired like a horse. It can travel all day as long as it has water and fuel. Layla admits that when he first brought a new girl with him, she was confused and didn't know how to react to it. But now Layla understands that this girl is a real discovery. Meanwhile, the guy looks surprised because he doesn't understand who exactly is being talked about. When the masters learned about Nanami, at first they wanted to punish him, but he managed to demonstrate his skill and precision in work. Ami's appearance was a real triumph. It proved that Nanami has great potential. It was then that he created the steam engine. This engine is called steam-powered because it works on the power of steam. Coal is used to ignite the fire. Water boils and turns into steam, which moves through pipes, alternately reaching the pistons on the left and right, forcing them to move back and forth. The reciprocating motion is converted into rotation using a crank and a flywheel. After that, the rotation is transmitted to the wheels so that the machine can move. This engine is the most famous steam machine in his world. Although as an invention, it raises many questions because the design lacks important details, they still somehow managed to assemble something similar. Nanami develops everything in his imagination, transforms ideas into a model, and loads it into the machine, and then all that remains is to assemble everything together. This is what their work process looks like. Sho personally assembled the boiler and independently prepared every small pipe. He put a lot of his ideas and skill into the mechanism, but the device itself is not very fast yet. Now it can only go 30-40 kilometers per hour. The girl is curious if it can be made to move faster. The queen addressed the main character with a request to speed up the movement because she thinks that this will make the journey much more interesting and dynamic. The main character notices that Her Highness really loves speed. He says he could go even faster if he had more gears. Still, he explains that because of uneven roads, it would be dangerous. If they build a railway, it will allow traveling quickly and safely. Leela does not understand what he means. Then Sho explains that it is similar to the railway they made right in the castle. If it connects the country with the coal mines, transporting cargo will become much easier and faster. He says that new railway connections between cities will allow transporting more people and cargo. In his world, railways became an important part of the Industrial Revolution, and now he dreams that this world will develop the same way. The show explains that this will require a lot of time and money, as it is not only about their country, but about the future of the entire world. A minute passed, and Maluna spoke with surprise and admiration. She says that it is both interesting and a bit unfair. Layla advises the girl to participate in the show because it truly brings joy. Then the girl asks if she can do it. Hearing this, the girl decides to take a ride herself. She takes the wheel, and the main character watches with surprise as now Princess Maluna is going to drive the car. Driving this car is not difficult at all. It is like an automatic with one gear, without a clutch or shifting. Maluna asks Hay if he would agree to sell her this car. The girl offers him 500 gold coins as a reward. The main character realizes with surprise that this is a huge amount. In his world, it equals a full 100 million yen. He asks if that is enough. The princess replies that it is very little since she plans to manufacture and sell exactly this. The girl adds that for her, this is a normal investment. The main character understands that everything is thought out to the smallest detail. Feeling a strong desire to act, he notices. Some moments are hard to replicate, but he is sure this girl is extremely smart. If they work and wait a bit, they will definitely manage to establish mass production. He already knows that later, he will definitely have to get out of her car. The craftsman was shown how the steam engine works, which was made on the lathe. After that, he also began to create his own steam engine in his workshop. The man says that this is a truly smart invention. At first, they intended to create a steam engine machine that could transport coal carts. This could have taken from 5 to 10 years of hard work and research. However, they managed to make a real working automobile in just 1.5 months. Finally, the very day of the festival arrived, when Farline was supposed to show his new invention. During the festival, the queen comes out to the people and sincerely thanks everyone for gathering together. The girl explained that before the festival opening, someone present must say a few words. Everyone held their breath and watched the speech attentively, but he got confused and didn't know what to say. The main character addresses everyone in the hall. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." He smiles and introduces himself as a true showman. Then the young man adds that he is a student of Master Rubia. He tells that now they will go to the exhibition halls inside the castle and beyond its borders. There they will be able to see with their own eyes various inventions and developments that his country has created in its unique style. But the main character still managed to reveal this secret. Having tried many different ways, he finally brought them to life on his own. He recalls each of his craftsman friends and talks about the craftsmen from his country, as well as about the department that always helped them with materials. The boy notes that many people support his efforts for the welfare of the people, as Her Highness Princess Layla said. He raises his hand and asks to be accepted with love and affection. Unexpectedly, fireworks burst over the castle, and the whole sky is lit up with multicolored lights. This surprised everyone around so much that people could not take their eyes off the bright spectacle. Although he had to hurry, he still managed to prepare fireworks of the necessary colors. The orange light was produced thanks to sodium salts, the white thanks to tin, and the green with the help of copper. For launching the fireworks, he used an ordinary bamboo cane. This immediately brought to the main character's mind memories of the times when he crafted toy mortars in his home workshop. It was from those first attempts that the story of his unusual inventions began. And then someone in the crowd enthusiastically said that the fireworks were a real miracle. Rubia admiringly gazes at the wonderful painting. Suddenly, Sho approaches her, calls the girl a master, and thus surprises her. Then the boy suggests to Rubia to go out of town for a short while. People are strolling through the market, looking at the stalls. The boy hands the girl a skewer with food and asks her to hold it. "Thank you, Ruby," he says to her. The girl asks if he really has to go like that because today he seems like a real star. The main character smiles and reassures her, assuring that everything is under control. Ahead of them are business meetings, but he is confident that Her Highness will handle everything. Rubia smiles and admits that since he appeared in her life, everything around has changed drastically. The girl remembers how she dreamed of a peaceful life in the forest. The boy is a bit confused and apologizes that her dream did not come true. Ruby just smiles to encourage him and says that everything is fine. The girl tells him that if she had stayed in the forest for a long time, nothing would have happened between them. She looks at him awkwardly and admits that she wouldn't feel this way if it weren't for certain circumstances. The boy immediately blushes and cannot understand what she is really talking about. The girl also became embarrassed and said that she must apologize to him. Ruby says that if he can show the same strength he has now, she is ready to recommend him to Imperial College to be officially granted the title of a true master. Then he will have the opportunity to embark on a further journey. The girl asks if he knows why she did not do so. The main character is still embarrassed and blushing a little guesses maybe she wanted to stay with him. He turns aside and says he does not want to take part in these formalities. He adds that he will not leave the remote strip with her or by himself. The boy also says he has to apologize. He explains why he kept it a secret for so long. Rubia is surprised that it was he who was hiding it from them. The hero is scared to confess, but he dares and tells that he came from another world. The girl opens her eyes wide in amazement. Suddenly one of the townspeople points to the sky and asks what is there. His neighbor replies that it is too dark to see anything. Some consider it a bird. Another cannot agree, saying it is too large for a bird. Meanwhile, one man, confused, shouts that this creature is rapidly approaching. He does not believe what he sees and says in surprise that it is impossible. Before him truly stands a dragon. Suddenly, horror began to spread through the city. The monster fiercely attacked, and the residents scattered in panic, shouting loudly in fear. And the main hero, seeing this dragon, could not hide his astonishment. The dragon flew across the sky over the city, and people fell to the ground in fright. But after a few minutes, it simply disappeared beyond the horizon. The main hero watches as the dragon moves away, and everyone around is confused. No one can understand what happened. Someone in the crowd asks, "Did it fly away?" The man is curious about what they were talking about. Shu turns to Rubia to find out if she is all right. Rubia assures that she is fine. The main hero says that she has already returned to the castle. He is worried about what he heard regarding the increase in the number of demons, but he could not even imagine that dragons could actually appear in the city. Right now, they are having a business meeting in the castle. They just need to inform the queen so that she remains calm and does not raise an alarm. The main hero quietly tells Layla that a dragon appeared in the city. The girl does not believe him and asks him to explain what he means. The next morning, Mizuki sent him a letter from the Empire, attaching it to the paw of a carrier bird. The queen unfolded the message and learned that dragons attacked the Empire last night. She read the letter fearfully, as the entire Empire is engulfed in flames brought by the dragon. Shu suspects that this is the very dragon they saw last night. Layla explains that the dragon headed west. The main hero addresses Her Majesty with a question about what all this means. In response, the girl with fear on her face tells him that he is destined to return to this place again. Everyone around could not hide their amazement. The queen immediately ordered her assistant to urgently take Mizuki to a safe place. At that moment, Shio pondered. The distance to the Empire and the city is about 400 kilometers, so he asked at what speed dragons are capable of flying. Stella explains to him that they are moving at a speed of about 50-60 leagues per hour, and he asks again, so approximately 60 leagues per hour. 1 league is approximately 1.6 kilometers, so the dragon is flying at a speed of about 100 kilometers per hour. Taking into account the time needed for Mizuki's letter, in the worst case the dragon will reach them in 2 hours. The main character asks Stella and Feifei if they have ever had to fight dragons, as they seem very experienced to him. Stella replies with surprise that no, and asks not to mention her age anymore. Kid, imagine that they can protect themselves from fire using magic. The girl reminds him that before them are legendary creatures. The elf says that ancient books mention dragons, when they ate people, burned entire nations of continents with their flames. Shu and Rubia were impressed by what they heard, and it worried them greatly. Shu started to have a headache from the tension, and he even wanted to cry. Layla, however, did not stop. She insisted that they must act immediately. The man suggests taking all the townspeople to the forest to save them. He addresses the seeress, and she answers him. Shu gives her the order. All beastfolk must quickly run around the town and warn the inhabitants. They need to tell the people to flee to the forest without changing their clothes. The servant nods that she understands everything and immediately sets off to carry out the order. The main character reports that he will place defensive cannons on the fortifications and prepare them for battle. He is not sure if these cannons can hit the dragons, but hopes that at least they will scare them and force them to retreat. Rubia declared that she is ready to join the fight. Stella admitted that she had long dreamed of such an opportunity, but doubts whether she can use magic against such a giant at all. Rubia thought that she would probably be able to cast a spell only once, but Shu confidently replied that once is quite enough. He asks Layla to leave this place. The girl is surprised and does not understand why he wants this. She clearly says that she will not betray her people and will not run away. Shu is very worried about her safety. The main character orders the Chinkar brothers to quickly prepare the mortars and carry them to the eastern rampart. The brothers immediately agree and get to work. He had 6 bullets left. One he gave to Countess Maluni so she could defend herself. Now he is going to dry the gunpowder using magic. On the streets, the beastmen are shouting loudly, warning that a dragon is approaching. The girls are urging everyone to run to the forest. A little girl is holding her sister by the edge of her dress and anxiously asks, what will happen to Farline if the dragon appears? Maria gently reassures her, saying, don't worry, because she is sure the master of the show will definitely protect them all. The man began shouting at his assistants, demanding an explanation of what they were doing. He was in a hurry, ordering them to leave this place as quickly as possible. His students hurriedly gathered their tools, and one of them noted that they couldn't manage without them. The master tells them, if you survive, you will create new ones, and orders to leave everything as it is. Since Mizuki delivered the news, 4 hours have passed. Night approaches the queen and informs her that the crossbow has been launched. She asks him if the people have already left this place. He answers yes. Layla notes that the dragon has not appeared yet, but they should be on alert. Sho decided that it would be better if he did not come today, and quietly suggested to the dragon to take a walk somewhere far away. Suddenly a bright flash appears in the sky. The boys ask the host to look up. The main character says excitedly that he sees it. Kaka says that it is a dragon, and Tika shouts that it is already approaching. The main character asks Nanami about its size and height. The girl answers that the dragon's wingspan is 54 meters, and it can fly up to a height of 12 meters. Sho realizes that this cannot be real. Nanami explains that the dragon somehow ignores the laws of physics. The man agrees and says he had already suspected this. Layla is curious about what is being discussed. Shu turns to her and says that with such a body and wings, flying won't work. He expresses a guess that the dragon can make itself lighter using magic. The girl reacts with surprise because she never imagined that dragons even have the ability to use magic. Nanami reported that the dragon has already reached an altitude of 900 meters. Fifi, Stella, Rubia, and Leela became very worried. Later, Nanami added that the dragon descended even lower, to 800 meters. The boy raises his eyes and notices the dragon flying closer and closer. The dragon with its mouth wide open rapidly approaches them. The Chick brothers shout something to each other in fear. The host addresses them, encouraging them not to be afraid. He reminds them of the place where they need to meet. Meanwhile, the dragon is flying only 200 meters above the ground. Tika calms everyone down, saying there is very little left. Shu suddenly shouted, ordering to open fire. The boys covered their ears and a volley of shots rang out. The boy calls out that they hit the enemy. The dragon was successfully wounded. They need to find shelter from the strong wind. The dragon roars as it approaches almost right up to the protective wall. The queen encourages the people, urging them not to be afraid and to prepare for battle. She orders all the cannons to open fire right now. People shoot arrows from crossbows, and several of them hit the dragon. Tika and Kaka take up their weapons again and shoot once more. The dragon is surrounded by protective magic that strikes the main character. Layla, in turn, does not hide her surprise upon learning that he can use magic. Suddenly, the main character realizes, if he does not break the dragon's protective magic, his teacher's spell will never reach him. Suddenly, another strong explosion sounded. The monster became even angrier, and the main character was gripped by panic. They do not understand what exactly they see. Tika loudly shouts that she noticed the car. The boy is so surprised that he cannot believe his eyes. He loudly shouts that Princess Maluna herself is sitting behind the wheel. The girl confidently drives the car, and everyone around is amazed that a mortar was installed on the car. The show called this complete nonsense, addressing Layla. Layla only agrees with a smile and says that this is exactly what the real Maluna is like. The show notices how the dragon's protection gradually weakens. He realizes that the unexpected attack confused the dragon. Then the show loudly shouts to Ruby to hurry up and act. She approaches Stella and asks for help to defend using magic. Stella loudly replies that she understands everything and urges her friend to break the enemies together. Ruby commands everyone to fall to the ground, and she herself begins to cast a powerful spell. The staff in her hands brightly glowed. The show approaches Layla and asks her to be more careful. As soon as the magic disappears, the dragon also vanishes into the air. No one around understands what to do next. Stella cannot believe that they acted like that. The show notices that there are no traces of the dragon and urges everyone to stay alert. He orders those who can move to prepare crossbows and load mortars. The boy froze and looked up. The dragon stood unharmed, preparing for a new attack, and the main hero looked at him fearfully. The dragon roars loudly, preparing to attack. The main hero instantly realizes flames will burst from the mouth right now. However, the queen orders everyone to evacuate immediately and demands that the workers leave the building. Stella steps forward and asks everyone to stand behind her. She promises to protect her comrades with her magic and urges them to hurry. The dragon spits fire from its jaws, scorching towers, houses, the railway, and market stalls. People hide in the forest and watch the events carefully. The boy holds a book close to his chest and looks frightened. He thinks the castle is burning. Nim is increasingly worried about Mr. Shaw. Stella tries with her last strength to hold back the fiery attack. Meanwhile, Feifei protects Leela, preventing her from getting hurt. The battle finally ends and the girl collapses weakly to the ground. Shaw calls her by name and rushes to help. Around and near the castle, everything is engulfed in flames. The main hero cannot believe how strong Stella turned out to be. He realizes that the girl has given all her magical powers, and if the flames flare up again, it will be the end for her. They understand that they must act quickly before he attacks again. The boy wonders, how can they even fight this enemy? Even mortars and Ruby's magic do not harm his scales. Shaw realizes they are powerless to do anything. The main hero thinks that if he stops and starts thinking instead of acting, it will all be over for them. He thought that without marks it would be really hard to aim, so he called Feifei and asked her to aim directly at his eye. The girl cannot understand exactly what the boy is talking about. Meanwhile, he assures her that he already has an idea. The dark elf, who immediately grasped everything, agrees with him and swiftly jumps forward. She draws the bowstring and releases the arrow straight at the target. This greatly angers the dragon. Layla asked why he was so irritated, since if the flames appear again, they will be doomed. Shaw replied that this is exactly his plan. He wants to direct his double activation magic right into the open jaws of the dragon. The main hero turns to the Chikaka brothers and asks them to prepare the mortar. The brothers obediently agree. Meanwhile, Shaw realizes, as soon as he starts acting, the mortar will break. He decides to put all his effort into making everything succeed as best as possible. The main character utters a spell, putting all his magical power into it. He compresses the air twice and directs this power into his weapon, so the Chica brothers already feel that the flame is about to ignite. The main character loudly shouts the command to attack, and the soldiers immediately open fire from their cannons. During the show, the air suddenly compresses sharply, and an explosion suddenly sounds. People are thrown back by the wave. The charred dragon falls to the ground with a noise. The main character climbs out from under the debris, hoping that everything is already behind. He looks down and asks if the dragon really died. The boy grabs Her Majesty by the shoulders, gently shakes her, trying to bring her to consciousness. He anxiously asks if she is okay and urges her to come to. Shu adds that they have defeated the dragon. The girl looks around and asks if anyone else is alive. She asks all the survivors not to be silent, but to respond loudly. In response, people joyfully shout and chant words of support. Rubia ran up to him in tears and hugged him tightly. He sincerely rejoiced that she was okay and told that Stella and Feifei were also alive. Stella replied that they almost died because of his magic. The boy laughed and apologized to them. The girl stated that he is really a terribly bad and dangerous student, so she forbids him from using compression magic. And the main character again asked her why she wears a bandage. Rubia explains that she is considered threatening because if her true nature is revealed, it will be seen what enormous power she hides. Shu again asks her a question. Words about very high temperature, crazy pressure, and plasma come to his mind. Finally, he guesses what she is talking about and answers. It is a thermonuclear reaction. Stella is silent at first, then asks what that is. The main character explains that everything around us consists of tiny particles. If they are compressed very strongly and heated to enormous temperatures, these particles break apart and scatter in different directions. Then they meet and combine together. At this moment, their weight decreases. The girl is curious about what happens when they lose weight. Sho explains to her that weight turns into energy, which equals the square of the speed of light. She asks at what speed light moves. The hero first recalls that it is 300,000 kilometers per second, but then converts this number into leagues. It turns out to be 187,500 leagues, since 1 league is approximately 1.6 kilometers. The girl notices that this distance is really very large. Stella asks him with surprise how he can so easily talk about something that has long been forbidden. She does not understand where he knows this from. He is a little embarrassed, but still decides to share with them everything he knows. He addresses them and asks them to listen carefully, explaining that he came here from another world. Feifei, Layla, and Stella remain calm. He cannot understand why they react this way and looks surprised. Stella admits that she had suspected this for a long time. Layla notes that he could have said this earlier. He finds it strange how they perceive it. The girl admitted that she did not believe the story that the boy came from overseas, since such people are hard not to notice. Her words surprised the boy, but he admitted that it sounds quite convincing. He looks at Rubia and asks if she really trusted him. The girl answers that from the very beginning she suspected something like that. At that moment, the main hero arrives, impressed and confused. The queen says that it really does not matter where he came from. She adds that now chaos reigns in the city and the castle, and if Farline wants to restore everything as it was before, they really need his help. Rubia asked Sho if he would stay with them. The main hero carefully addresses Her Majesty and his lord. He is nervous because he cannot find the words and is not sure himself what he would do if he got the chance to return to this world again. Sho does not know if he really wants to return. If he had such a chance, he would post the video again, as he did last time. He did not know what awaited him ahead and in the end answered himself. No, in that world he only had faceless followers, but here, real friends. The main character would dream of staying among the inhabitants of Farline, whom he meets every day. Sho, however, replies with a smile that he will continue to live in the Farline castle, like a true lord. All the girls sincerely rejoice and smile. They wonder what to do with the dragon. Layla confidently answers that the dragon, of course, will be taken apart and turned into gold. Stella agrees with her friend. They say that dragons are extremely valuable. Once, hundreds of years ago, when their old bodies were found, one could collect enough money from these treasures to buy even a small country. And now dragons are still alive, so this is an even greater rarity. The girl supports this and shows approval with her hands. The girl says that according to books, the large gallbladder has healing properties, and when it contains stones, it becomes especially valuable and expensive. The main heroine inquired about the meat, but Stella did not quite understand what was being talked about. Then Sho asked if dragon meat could be eaten. The girl could not give a clear answer to this. Suddenly Nami announces that dragon meat can be eaten. Sho admires her idea, calls her a good girl, and already imagines that tonight they will have steaks and burgers made from dragon meat for dinner, starting to salivate. The boy rushes excitedly to the dragon, while the main character wonders in his thoughts whether it will be possible to make broth from its bones. Rubia is angry at the boy's frivolity. Layla smiles and says that Sho is always so curious about everything, and that is exactly what they like about him. Stella smiles and admits that she is a little jealous of him. She says that his ability to think outside the box and sincerely be interested in everything around is a true talent. In the girl's opinion, he is a true master of his craft. A year has passed and Farline is still on the path to recovery. Under the newly built walls rest the remains of the dragon, and now they have become a new symbol for the entire city. All the inhabitants eagerly await when the country will begin to revive and develop further. Sho still has many tasks ahead. He is lost in his thoughts when suddenly Layla quietly approaches from behind. She jokingly notes that he is again pondering some strange ideas. Shaw says that he is developing a new theory. Thanks to it, people will be able to communicate over a distance. He adds that, for example, Layla will be able to happily talk with Princess Maluna even when she is in the castle. The queen is very worried and asks if it is really possible, and if so, when it will happen. He just shrugs and says he does not know. Stella and Rubia enter the room. The host says he is still busy with matters. Rubia says she wants to have a little snack. The boy smiles at them and offers to make pancakes.